Chapter 17:27. The Power Within These Black Wolves. Nietion's eyes flickered and his face darkened when he sensed the dark aura surging within the black wolf bodies. It was the dark energy that made the wolf pack go crazy and rush over. Could it be that these wolves escaped from the forbidden land of the nine-headed infant? Nietion guessed in his heart, but he didn't think this guess was credible. The black wolves were too weak. The forbidden ground of the nine infants shouldn't have such weak mythological beasts. Roar! At this moment, the pack of wolves once again let out a deep roar and pounced on Nietion. At this moment, Nietion clearly sensed that the dark aura within Black Wolf's body surged even more violently, and his dark green eyes turned slightly blood-red. Without hesitation, he fired the fire beacon crossbow. Fire arrows rained down on the wolves like a storm. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of black wolves died on the spot. They were drowned in the flames and turned into ashes. Rui Qianyu and Tang Yuyu watched from the side with fear. Nietion killed almost 1,000 black wolves in an instant. This was too scary. Nietion let out a long breath and put away the fire beacon crossbow. Without the fire beacon crossbow, it wouldn't have been easy to kill so many black wolves. 13. Tang Yu reacted at this time and screamed. Then, his figure flashed and he rushed towards a valley. Nietion and Rui Qianyu followed him into the valley. After stepping into the valley, Nietion felt something was wrong. The air was filled with dark energy and the entire valley was shrouded in darkness. 13. Tang Yu didn't pay attention to anything else. Seeing Tang 13 lying on the ground, he hurried over. Watch out! Just then, Nietion felt something was wrong and shouted. Boom! Almost at the same time, Tang 13's body shook. A ray of black light shot out like a sharp knife towards Tang Yuyu. Nietion reacted quickly. His figure flashed and pulled Tang Yuyu back, but he himself was struck in the shoulder by the black light. A bloody wound appeared and blood flowed out violently. In the blink of an eye, Nietion felt a strange and evil force surging into his body, as though it was devouring all of his meridians and blood. Greatly alarmed, Nietion hurriedly released the power of the fiend god and forcibly forced out the evil power. Nietion, are you all right? Rui Qianyu and Tang Yuyu were shocked at the same time and asked in astonishment. I'm fine. Nietion shook his head slightly and glanced at the wound on his shoulder. It was already slowly healing. What is going on? Tang Yuyu calmed down a little. Looking at Tang 13 on the ground, he asked in shock. Tang 13 was lying flat on the ground. Her body was surrounded by a dark energy. She looked like a dark abyss. Nietion stepped forward and felt the energy from Tang 13's body. His expression turned serious. Inside Tang 13's body, there was an extremely frightening dark energy that was surging. It kept attacking inside his body. Right now, Tang 13 was in a coma. Otherwise, this would be an unbearable pain. It was obvious that the dark energy in his eyes was acting up and spreading throughout his body. The situation was more serious than Nietion expected. Tang Yuyu, what happened to you? Nietion became cold and asked in a low voice. Tang Yuyu's eyes flickered. Holding back her tears, she began to explain. It turned out that Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu ran into other people and started fighting. Tang 13 had no choice but to use the eye of the ghost stare, which caused the dark energy to act up. Tang 13 brought Tang Yuyu to this valley and felt that the dark energy was getting out of control. She told Tang Yuyu to go find Nietion. Fat, what do we do now? Nietion inhaled deeply. He knew nothing about dark energy and didn't know what to do. He could only ask Fat Cat. I don't know either. Fat Cat's expression was serious as she shook her head. That dark energy is too strong. In merely a few days, it has grown to this extent. I'm afraid that even if you can bring it into the forbidden ground of the nine infants, it will be too late. With Fat Cat's personality, if there was a way, it would have appeared a long time ago. Nietion's eyes widened and his expression turned ugly. What did Fat Cat mean by it was too late? Was he going to watch Tang 13 get swallowed by the dark energy? No, Nietion's eyes were shaking, and he screamed internally. He could not watch Tang 13 get swallowed by the dark energy. Nietion's body moved. Starry energy poured out of his body and formed a starry shield that wrapped around Tang 13. Then, Nietion carried Tang 13 on his back. He sensed for a moment. Tang 13's energy was steady and was even getting stronger. However, it was getting darker and creepier. Nietion, what are you doing? Tang Yuyu was startled. He didn't know what Nietion wanted to do. Follow me. Nietion didn't explain much. He said in a low voice and started running. Though he had the starry shield, Nietion could still feel waves of dark energy rushing into his body. He could only use the strength of the devil to resist. After running for a few thousand meters, Nietion's forehead was covered in sweat. The dark energy was too scary. Resisting the dark energy was a huge burden on Nietion. I can't go on like this, Nietion thought to himself. He wanted to go to the forbidden ground of the 9 infants, but he was dozens of meters away from the forbidden ground. With such a long distance, he was afraid that he would be swallowed by the dark energy before he arrived. The power of the dark energy was extremely creepy. The strength of the devil could barely resist it. The key was that Nietion had only awakened 32 strength of the devil. He couldn't use the full power of the strength of the devil. Nietion, are you okay? Rui Qinyu saw that Nietion was covered in cold sweat and couldn't help but ask worriedly. I'm fine, Nietion responded. He had to bring Tang 13 to the forbidden ground of the 9 infants. Even if there was only a 1 in 10,000 chance, he wouldn't give up. Nietion, be careful. Just then, Fat Cat suddenly screamed. Nietion suddenly raised his head. His eyes narrowed, and he couldn't help but tremble. Boom! Crack, crack, crack. In midair, a huge black ice pillar appeared and pressed down on Nietion. Everywhere the ice pillar passed, the space was frozen. Damn it! Seeing this, Nietion let out a low roar and stabbed out with his sword. A sword shadow rose up against the force of the attack. The sword light shot out for 1,000 meters. Boom! The ice pillar and the sword shadow collided. A loud explosion sounded, but the sword shadow was directly shattered. The huge ice pillar pressed down on Nietion. Oh no! Nietion's heart sank. Astral energy surged around his body and condensed into an astral shield. Chapter 1728. The sudden scene caused both Raindrop, Qinya, and Tang Yuyu to stare blankly for a moment before they exclaimed, Nietion! Nietion, is it? Right at this time, a black-robed figure appeared in midair. The corner of his mouth curved into a cold smile as he spoke. Taking the Ice Devil's attack head-on, he will die without a doubt. It's you. Rui Qinyu raised her head to look at the figure in the air. Her eyes glimmered as she exclaimed in surprise. The black-robed figure was none other than the Bing family's young lord, Bing Ju. At this time, the Ice Devil's aura around Bing Ju was much stronger than before. Terrifying frigid energy surged around his body, freezing the space behind him. Rui Qinyu stared at Bing Ju. Her eyes glimmered as if a strange light would gush out from them in the next moment. Rui Qinyu was going to use her 9-color pupils. Qinya, don't be rash. Right at this time, a familiar voice rang in the air. The giant boulder shook and exploded. A blood-colored figure stepped out from the boulder and stood there. Nietion. Rui Qinyu saw Nietion's figure. Her eyes trembled and a warm feeling surged in them. I'm fine. Nietion smiled faintly. He turned around to look at Tang 13. The latter was uninjured. Nietion took the brunt of the attack head-on. Moreover, Tang 13 was protected by the astral shield. In addition to the darkness element aura surrounding Tang 13, she wasn't injured. On the other hand, Nietion's body was a bloody mess. It was a terrifying sight to behold. However, the injuries he suffered were merely flesh wounds. His origin meridians and godheads weren't damaged, so it wasn't serious. Bing Ju's sudden appearance caught Nietion off guard. On top of that, he was carrying Tang 13 on his back. His strength was suppressed by the darkness element aura, which was why he was injured by Bing Ju. How is this possible? Bing Ju's figure hovered in midair. His body swayed uncontrollably, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. He had never imagined that Niet Tion's strength would be so strong that he would only suffer some light injuries after being hit by the Ice Devil's power head-on. Bing Ju, enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Niet Tion's body shook as he shook off the bloodstains on his body. His eyes flashed with a cold light. He did not expect to meet Bing Ju here. He was in a hurry to save Tang 13. If Ju Bing continued, he would be forced to kill Tang 13. Niet Tion, you don't have any more Ice Demon Silk on you. Are you afraid? Bing Ju calmed down and smiled coldly. The killing intent in his eyes was extremely dense. The demonic Ice Silk is in my hands. If you want revenge, come at me. Right at this moment, a voice rang out in the distance before a figure descended. It was Gue Wutzan. We meet again, Niet Tion. Looking towards Niet Tion, Gue Wuchan gave a faint smile. Niet Tion forced a smile and immediately understood. So Gue Wutzan was nearby. No wonder Bing Ju would appear. Do you think you deserve to own something like the demonic Ice Silk? Bing Ju was stunned at first. Then he looked at Gue Wutzan and spoke in a deep voice. He did not take Gue Wutzan seriously at all, thinking that the latter was just a small fry following by Niet Tion's side. Gue Wutzan sneered. Without looking at Bing Ju, he said to Niet Tion, go and do your own thing. Leave this guy to me. Niet Tion's eyes narrowed slightly. He carried Tang 13 on his back, then glanced at Gue Wutzan and reminded, he's very strong. You have to be careful. Niet Tion did not want to be entangled with Bing Ju any longer. With Bing Ju's strength, if he wanted to kill him, he would have to use the 3 great forbidden skills. As for Niet Tion, he wanted to enter the forbidden ground of 9 infants, so he had to use the 3 great forbidden skills to deal with the guardians of the forbidden ground. He knew that the guardians of the forbidden ground were much scarier than Bing Ju, but the forbidden ground of 9 infants was his only chance to save Tang 13. He had to give it his all. Don't worry. Gue Wutzan smiled faintly, appearing very confident. You want to fight me with just you? Ridiculous. Bing Ju looked at Gue Wutzan coldly and sneered. Then he moved and slapped out with his palm. Numerous ice blades appeared in the air and slammed towards Gue Wutzan like sharp swords. Underestimating the ghost martial devil style is the biggest mistake you made. Gue Wutzan sneered in a deep voice. A black longsword appeared in his hand, and the sword aura around him surged. With a thrust of the sword, a black skull formed from sword will appeared in the air. What a strong sword will! Feeling the sword aura from Gue Wutzan's body, Niet Tion could not help but tremble and exclaim in his heart. This was the first time Gue Wutzan showed his strength. It was much stronger than Niet Tion had imagined. Gue Wutzan's sword cultivation had actually reached the essence of sword realm, and there were even signs of him breaking through to the realm of sword selflessness. The disciple of Gue Wu Kwangsha is indeed not simple. Niet Tion was extremely surprised and thought to himself, since Gue Wu Kwangsha and the Sword Elder were known as the Southern Gue Wu Beiqing Qi, there was no doubt that his strength was strong. Gue Wutzan was the disciple of Gue Wu Kwangsha, so of course he was not simple. Knowing Gue Wutzan's strength, Niet Tion hesitated no more. Then he moved and prepared to leave. Bang! The moment the black skull appeared, a muffled sound was heard. Bing Ju's body was directly sent flying. The frozen space behind him collapsed inch by inch, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Brat, you... Bing Ju steadied himself, and his eyes trembled violently. His face was extremely ugly. How could he have expected Gue Wutzan to be so strong? However, the palm strike just now was just a probing attack. Next, he would have to take this opponent seriously. On the other side, Niet Tion's body moved, and he wanted to leave. But at this moment, he suddenly felt a strong aura appear, and his face sank. Niet Tion's body paused, and he signaled Rui Qianyu and Tang Yuyu to retreat. The latter two had a blank look on their faces, and they still did not know what was going on. Stay here. At this moment, a violent roar sounded in the void, and then a figure in black appeared. He directly slammed his palm down, and the majestic palm shadow was like a mountain rolling down and directly smashed towards Nyetian. It's that guy. Nyetian felt a familiar aura, and his eyes couldn't help but tremble. He cried out in his heart, and at the same time he opened the trival sword vein in his body and stabbed out with his sword. The surging sword shadow rose against the sky. Boom! In the next moment, the palm and the sword collided, and the void shook violently. A terrifying aura descended, forcing Nyetian to retreat 100 meters. The ground rumbled, and a huge pit with a radius of 100 meters appeared. The ground around it was torn apart. Duan Tianen. Nyetian steadied himself, looked at the black-clothed figure in midair, and called out his name in a deep voice. The person who suddenly appeared was actually Duan Tianhen, the person who possessed the fifth seal. The two people that Nyetian did not want to meet the most were Lian Jiofeng and Duan Tianhen. He never thought that Duan Tianhen would appear at this time. Chapter 1729. Duan Tianhen suddenly appeared, glaring at Nyetian and the others with murderous intent. His aura roiled, and the black symbols on his body radiated a terrifying, violent aura. Nyetian narrowed his eyes. He hadn't expected Duan Tianhen to show up at a time like this. Looking at Duan Tianhen's posture, it was obvious that he had come in a domineering manner, intending to kill. Nyetian put Tang 13 on the ground. If he wanted to leave, he had to defeat Duan Tianhen first. You're Nyetian, right? Duan Tianhen lowered himself slightly, and the ultimate wind lightning seal around him grew stronger. Thunder rumbled in the air, and the space around him grew darker and darker. It was a suffocating pressure. So what if I am? Niet Tianling replied coldly. 32 streams of devil god power surged inside of him, and he opened his tri-evil sword vein. Duan Tianhen was an even more terrifying opponent than Absolute Ice. He had to go all out. You know Lian Jiofeng, right? Duan Tianhen said with a cold smile. Too bad he's not here right now. You're dead. Is that so? Nyetian growled. Without another word, he stabbed out with his sword. Sword light blossomed in the air, and a sharp sword shadow shot toward Duan Tianhen. Duan Tianhen laughed in disdain. After that, he released the heavenly wind lightning imprint and slammed out with his palm. His black claws were like collapsing dark clouds, directly devouring the sword images in the air. Frowning, Nyetian summoned his astral soul wings and dodged the deadly attack. Rumble. The terrifying palm slammed into the ground, causing it to tremble and explode. A wave of dirt rose into the air. Nyetian swept his sword through the dirt, but blood trickled down the corner of his mouth. Duan Tianhen was an early paramount god, 2 whole realms higher than Nyetian. Add the ultimate wind lightning seal to the fact that it could resist the restrictions, and he was strong. Humph! Duan Tianhen smiled disdainfully after injuring Nyetian with a single palm strike. He declared loudly, Nyetian, you may be in cahoots with Lian Jiofeng, but you're far weaker than him. Duan Tianhen didn't think much of Nyetian at all. In his opinion, Lian Jiofeng was the only one who could fight him among all the participants of the 9 Neonate Forbidden Hunt. Really? Nyetian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth as an evil light flashed in his eyes. His body shook as terrifying black runes began to emit from his body. It was the dragon inscription talisman. Duan Tianhen was too strong. Without using the 3 forbidden techniques, Nyetian was no match for him. Duan Tianhen stared at the black runes around Nyetian's body, and his eyes couldn't help but tighten. Then he laughed coldly and said disdainfully, looks like you still have a trump card. Unfortunately, in front of me, no matter how strong your trump card is, there's only one word for you, death. After activating the dragon inscription talisman, Nyetian's strength began to skyrocket. The aura around him also became extremely violent. He didn't use all 3 forbidden techniques, but only the dragon inscription talisman. He wasn't looking down on Duan Tianhen, but he had to conserve his strength because he still had to bring Tang 13 into the forbidden ground of the Nine Neonate. Starry heavenly slash, blood devours the heavens. In the next moment, Nietian raised his strength to the extreme, advancing from the early High God realm to the late High God realm. As he let out a deep roar, the starry heaven slash burst forth with dazzling sword light. Surging sword intent was filled with a terrifyingly surging blood aura. The increase in strength brought about by the three forbidden techniques also allowed Nietian to awaken more of his fiend god energy. This increased his resistance against martial arts restrictions. Boom! A 1,000-meter-long, blood-colored sword shadow appeared in the air. Its majestic aura engulfed heaven and earth, devouring everything in its path. Duan Tianen's eyes flickered when he felt the power of Nietian's sword. He was extremely surprised. He didn't expect Nietian's strength to be so terrifying. However, he didn't panic. Instead, he let out a low roar. Celestial wind and thunder, 5 thunders. As Duan Tianhen let out a furious roar, he struck out with his palm. Terrifying black thunderbolts of a martial way actually appeared in the void. They were like 5 huge black snakes, surging into space and blasting towards the huge sword in the sky. Rumble. Chi, chi, chi. The two forces collided, and a deafening tearing sound was heard in the air. The 5 giant black snakes wrapped around the giant sword, and suddenly tightened their grip. Boom! Boom! After 2 loud explosions, the giant sword shadow suddenly collapsed. The 5 black thunders also exploded at the same time. The terrifying power wreaked havoc in the space, causing the heaven and earth to shake. When Rui Qinyu and the others saw this scene, their eyes trembled violently. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed that this battle would be so intense. After a long time, the violent power dissipated. 2 figures appeared in the air. It was Duan Tianhen and Nietian. The two stood in the air, black runes surging around them. They looked bloody and violent. Nietian, I didn't expect you to be so strong. You are strong enough to be my opponent. Duan Tianhen smiled cold. He looked at Nietian with a fierce gaze, but at the same time, there was a hint of fear. Nietian's strength had far exceeded his expectations. He finally understood why Lion Jiufeng valued Nietian so much. Nietian's expression was dark. He didn't respond. His strength was far greater than this, but he didn't want to use it now. If he used the 3 great forbidden skills at the same time, he wouldn't be able to bring Tang 13 into the 9 infants' forbidden land. Duan Tianhen, I'll give you one last warning. Don't block my way. Nietian glanced at Tang 13. He couldn't help but panic when he felt the dark aura in the latter's body grow more and more violent. He locked his gaze on Duan Tianhen and said solemnly. Duan Tianhen's gaze focused. Nietian's killing intent shocked him. He could even feel an even more terrifying power hidden in Nietian's body. In that instant, Duan Tianhen hesitated. Nietian made him feel true fear. Brother Duan, kill this brat. At this time, Bingju's voice sounded on the other side. He sounded very eager. Nietian stilled. Only then did he realize that Duan Tianhen and Bingju knew each other. The two clearly didn't come from the same subsidiary world. They must have met after the 9 infants' forbidden hunt began. Judging from Duan Tianhen's reaction, the two seemed to have made some kind of deal. Nietian, you're a very good opponent. If I step aside now, wouldn't it be too disappointing? Duan Tianhen's flickering gaze suddenly became resolute. His eyes were dripping with killing intent. Clearly, he wasn't going to step aside. Since that's the case, don't blame me. Nietian's eyes suddenly narrowed. Then, his deep voice resounded in the night sky. It was extremely eerie. In the next moment, even more terrifying forbidden skill runes surged out of his body. They surged around his body. His entire being seemed extremely evil. His entire body radiated with killing intent. This time, Nietian didn't hold back. He activated the 3 great forbidden skill runes at the same time. As the Forbidden Dragon Bloodline and Forbidden Dragon Soulbone were activated, Niation's aura skyrocketed. In the blink of an eye, his strength had skyrocketed from late-stage High God to early-stage Over God. Chapter 1730. How is this possible? Duan Tianhin stared at Niation in midair. His eyes could not help but tremble. He was shocked. Niation's strength had exploded from early High God to early Over God. He had risen by an entire realm. Duan Tianhin could not understand what the black runes in Niation's body were. How could they possess such a strange power that could instantly increase his strength? Duan Tianhin felt a little regretful at this moment. His determined gaze became hesitant. He had underestimated Niation far too much. He even felt that Niation was an even more terrifying opponent than Lian Jiufeng. On the other side, Bing Ju and Gue Wuxian were stunned as well. They stared blankly at Niation in midair. The shock in their hearts was written all over their faces. Gue Wuxian knew that Niation was powerful, but he did not expect him to be this powerful. It was too terrifying. Bing Ju's expression was extremely ugly. His mouth was wide open, but he could not say anything. If he had known that Niation was this powerful, he would have reconsidered whether or not to avenge the Bing family. But it was too late to say anything now. Niation had activated his 3 forbidden arts. There was no way he would let Duan Tianhin and the others leave alive. Prepare to die. Niation's gaze was vicious and bloodthirsty. His deep voice rang through the air like a death knell from hell. It was chilling. Niation's sword momentum soared into the sky. His sword intent surged, and his blood chi surged. Hovering in midair, he looked like a blood-weeping sword that could pierce through heaven and earth, exuding a terrifying aura of blood. Right now, Niation was a sword that killed. Starlight heavenly slash, God-destroying strike, world incinerator. Niation raised his sword and murmured. Terrifying sword intent instantly condensed. A huge blood-colored sword appeared in the air. It slashed down at Duan Tianhin like a scarlet dragon. The power of this sword shook the heavens and the earth, destroying everything in its path. Duan Tianhin's eyes trembled. He was actually shocked by Niation's aura. He stood there motionlessly, completely forgetting to resist. With his strength, if he pushed the heavenly wind lightning seal to the limit, he might be able to receive this sword. Unfortunately, he was afraid, faced with an opponent stronger than him. Duan Tianhin's first reaction was fear. By the time he reacted, he had already lost his best opportunity. No. When Duan Tianhin saw that sword shadow descend, his eyes trembled violently. The fear in his heart was magnified infinitely, and the aura of death made him despair. The sword image was like a mountain, sweeping up the dark clouds in the sky. It carried with it an absolute killing intent as it descended. If this sword had landed on Duan Tianhin, he would have died without a doubt. When the others saw the horrifying scene in the sky, their eyes became dull, and they were extremely shocked. However, right when Duan Tianhin's life was hanging by a thread, an unexpected event occurred. Whoosh! In the void, a ball of green light whizzed past like the wind and lightning. It enveloped Duan Tianhin and formed a green barrier. In the next moment, the terrifying sword fell, but it passed through Duan Tianhin's body. It actually couldn't break through the green barrier around him. Kaboom! Immediately after, the sword image bombarded the ground. The earth shook and the ground cracked. Everything within a radius of a few thousand meters collapsed, and a wave of soil dozens of meters high rose from the ground. It was as if the end of the world had come. After a long time, the terrifying wave of soil gradually subsided, and the space gradually became clear. Niation's figure stood in midair, but he looked at Duan Tianhin with a burning gaze. Under the protection of the green barrier, Duan Tianhin was actually unharmed. Duan Tianhin stood there, his expression completely blank. He had no idea what had happened. In the next moment, Niation immediately reacted, and he exclaimed in his heart, "The power of the 9-color pupils!" Then he looked into the void. The person who had saved Duan Tianhin at the critical moment had used the power of the 9-color pupils. This clearly wasn't done by Rui Qinyu, and Rui Qinyu's 9-color pupils couldn't possibly be so powerful. It's her. Nie Tian's eyes trembled, and a face appeared in his mind. It was Gao Yuhan. Other than Gao Yuhan, Nie Tian couldn't think of anyone else. Follow me. At this moment, a voice sounded in Nie Tian's mind. It was Gao Yuhan. He was stunned. It was clearly Gao Yuhan who had spoken to him. Indeed, it was Gao Yuhan who had saved Duan Tianhin, but she didn't want to appear. Nie Tian thought for a moment. Then he moved and carried Tang 13 on his back. Then he shouted to Rui Qinyu and Tang Yuyu, "Let's go." Without hesitation, Nie Tian left with Tang 13 and the others. Gue Wuchan was stunned. Seeing that Nie Tian had already left, there was no need for him to stay. He flew in another direction. Only Duan Tianhin and Bingju were left. Their expressions were blank, and they had no idea what had happened. After a long time, Duan Tianhin finally reacted. He gulped, but his expression was still stiff. Even though he had saved his life, he didn't know who it was that had saved him. On the other side, Nie Tian's figure was sprinting. He followed Gao Yuhan's trail and quickly arrived at Hidden Valley. "Come in." Gao Yuhan's voice sounded from within the valley. Without hesitation, Nie Tian carried Tang 13 and entered the valley. "Master, it's you." Rui Qinyu and Tang Yuyu didn't know what had happened either. When they entered the valley and saw Gao Yuhan, they couldn't help but scream. "Put him down." Gao Yuhan ignored the two. She looked at Nie Tian and said calmly. Nie Tian placed Tang 13 flat on the ground. The pressure on his body immediately weakened. At this time, the sun had just risen and the sky was getting brighter. Everyone could clearly see the dark energy swirling around Tang 13's body. Her entire body's skin turned dark and was covered in black lines. "His life is not in danger now. I will save him." Gao Yuhan didn't waste words. She raised her hand slightly and sent Tang 13 into the cave in the valley. Nie Tian's gaze focused slightly as he stared at Gao Yuhan. He had no choice but to believe her, but he didn't understand why Gao Yuhan would save Duan Tianhin. Speaking of which, this was the second time Gao Yuhan had saved Duan Tianhin. The first time was when Duan Tianhin was about to fight Lian Jiufeng in the arena of life and death. Duan Tianhin has the 5th seal in his body. He cannot die yet. Gao Yuhan knew what Nie Tian was thinking and said indifferently. She didn't explain too much. Nie Tian stilled and then looked at Gao Yuhan. He said solemnly, "Elder, when will you save Tang 13? Nie Tian wasn't interested in why Gao Yuhan would save Duan Tianhin. He only cared about when Gao Yuhan would save Duan Tianhin. "It's not time yet." Gao Yuhan glanced at the cave Tang 13 was in. She said, "I am not completely confident. I can only take a risk." "HM?" Nie Tian stilled and asked, "What do you want to do?" Gao Yuhan's eyes were dark. She said, "His ghost eye is already open to the Blood Moon Ghost Eye. He is currently being invaded by the evil energy of Jiuying. If you want to save him, there's only one way. Make his ghost eye mutate." Chapter 17:31. Nie Tian looked at Gao Yuhan, confused. Mutating the ghost pupil? This was too strange. Nie Tian knew about mutated spirits, spiritual beasts, and mythical beasts, but mutating the other pupil was something he had never heard of. Gao Yuhan looked at Nie Tian and said in a low voice, "The Blood Moon Ghost pupil is very powerful, but it is not enough to fight against the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet. Therefore, I must stimulate the ghost pupil's potential and mutate it." The evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. He just realized that the dark energy was called the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet. After thinking for a while, Nie Tian asked, "Elder, how do you plan to mutate the ghost pupil?" "Use the power of the rainbow pupil to stimulate the ghost pupil and merge it with the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet to achieve mutation." Gao Yuhan's eyes were like torches. "This." Nie Tian frowned and his face darkened. He said in a trembling voice, The ghost pupil will merge with the evil energy of the nine-headed snakelet. How can you be sure that Tang 13 can handle this power? I cannot be sure. Gao Yuhan was very calm. She looked at the cave again and said, whether or not he can handle this power will depend on his own strength and willpower. Nie Tian sucked in a breath of cold air. It turned out that Gao Yuhan wasn't confident. Mutating the ghost pupil was actually a gamble. If he won the gamble, Tang 13's ghost pupil would become even more horrifying. But if he lost the gamble, Tang 13 would pay with his life and be completely consumed by the evil energy of the nine-headed snakelet. Nie Tian looked at Gao Yuhan. The latter's eyes were cold and calm. He's your friend. I'm only giving you a choice. Whether you want to do it or not, it is up to you. Gao Yuhan looked at Nie Tian and the others and said coldly. Nie Tian and the other two were shocked. They looked at each other hesitantly. Tang 13 was already unconscious. The person who had the most right to make the decision was Tang Yuyu. Yes, unexpectedly, Tang Yuyu was very decisive. He took a step forward and came to Gao Yuhan's side. He nodded heavily and said, please save him, Lord Elder. I will try my best. Gao Yuhan nodded, her eyes cold. Nie Tian's eyes trembled. Tang Yuyu's decisiveness surprised him. Tang Yuyu used to be an assassin. Though she had forgotten those memories, she was very calm and could make the right choice in times of danger. At this moment, there was only one option left for Nie Tian and the others, and that was to let Gao Yuhan take a gamble. If Nie Tian forcefully brought Tang 13 into the forbidden land of the nine-headed infant, not to mention whether he would be able to make it in, even if he did, his life would be in danger. If he could, 13, Tian would Tang Tian, Ling Tian. Elder, let's start the rescue. Nie Tian nodded solemnly. Seeing that Gao Yuhan didn't move, he couldn't help but urge. It is Tian said. No. Gao Yuhan, no. Nie Tian went blank for a moment. He had thought that since they were going to save people, shouldn't they do it as soon as possible? Gao Yuhan looked out of the valley and seemed to be waiting for something. She said, since we're going to merge the eye of the ghost eye with the evil energy of the nine neonate, we have to wait until the evil energy of the nine neonate is at its most violent. You will know soon. Gao Yuhan smiled. A strange light flashed in her eyes. You'll know soon enough. Gao Yuhan smiled faintly as a strange light flashed in her eyes. You will know soon. Gao Yuhan smiled. A strange light flashed in her eyes. Moments later, Nie Tian suddenly heard muffled rumbles coming from the ground, as if many huge things were running madly towards the valley. After a while, Nie Tian suddenly felt a low rumble from the ground. It was as if many giant things were running towards the valley. It is about time. Apparently, Gao Yuhan had also sensed it. Her eyes slightly darkened as she suddenly asked, Nie Tian, since you've already explored the nine-infant mountain range, have you noticed that all of the divine beasts here have one thing in common? Nie Tian's pupils constricted as he asked in surprise, what's special about it? They're all black. Gao Yuhan's eyes flashed with a trace of strangeness as she said indifferently. Nie Tian's face changed. He nodded. Gao Yuhan was right. All the mythological beasts in the Jiao-Ing mountain range were black. The black tiger that Nie Tian met before, the black wolf pack, and the other mythological beasts were all black. If not for Gao Yuhan's reminder, Nie Tian would not have noticed it. It seemed that the mythological beasts here were smaller. Compared to the mythological beasts of the same rank in the outside world, they were about 10 times smaller. It was strange. Nie Tian, do you know why? Gao Yuhan looked at Nie Tian and asked. Nie Tian was stunned. He thought of something and said, it is because of the evil energy of the Jiao-Ing. Yes. Gao Yuhan nodded. The evil energy of the Jiao-Ing filled the entire Jiao-Ing mountain range. All the mythological beasts here are affected by the evil energy of the Jiao-Ing mountain range. The evil energy has seeped into their bloodlines, so all the mythological beasts are black. So that's how it is. Nie Tian went blank for a moment before realization dawned upon him. Previously, when he was fighting with the Black Wolf Pack, he felt the evil energy of the Jiao-Ing surging in the Black Wolf Pack. It was because of the evil energy that the wolf pack went crazy. At this point, Nietian couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. All the mythological beasts had the evil energy of the Jiao-Ing mountain range. They were invaded by the evil energy of the Jiao-Ing mountain range. Didn't that mean that the black ball of light in the Jiao-Ing mountain range could control all the mythological beasts through the evil energy of the Jiao-Ing mountain range? Gao Yuhan looked at Nietian. She didn't know what he was thinking. She felt the commotion outside the valley and said, "The evil energy of the Jiao-Ing 13 was absorbed from the Jiao-Ing demon cocoon. Now that the evil energy of the Jiao-Ing mountain range is getting more and more violent, it will attract many mythological beasts." This, Nietian was stunned, and his eyes couldn't help but tremble. The Black Wolf Pack appeared because they felt the evil energy of the Jiao-Ing mountain range. Nietian also knew that the black ball of light in the Jiao-Ing mountain range was called the Jiao-Ing demon cocoon. But Gao Yuhan said that she didn't know what was in the Jiao-Ing mountain range. Maybe she only knew the name of the Jiao-Ing demon cocoon, but didn't know what it was. Boom! At this moment, the cave suddenly shook. A terrifying evil energy of the Jiao-Ing mountain range was released. It was like dark clouds rolling in all directions. "Rui Qinyu, come with me." Seeing this scene, Gao Yuhan's eyes slightly trembled. She immediately shouted and said to Nietian, "Nietian, Tang Yuyu, the two of you must guard the valley. Don't let anything break in." "Okay." Nietian and Tang Yuyu nodded solemnly. However, in the next moment, their faces abruptly changed and turned somewhat pale. At this moment, 10,000 meters away from the valley, the ground was shaking. The trees and rocks on the ground were all destroyed. The mythological beasts were rushing over. Chapter 1732. Looking at the horde of beasts outside the valley, Nietian couldn't help but gasp. Only now did he realize that this was not only a test for Tang 13, but also a test for him. While Gao Yuhan was helping Tang 13 with the mutation of the ghost eye, Nietian and Tang Yuyu had to stop the horde of beasts. Rumble! Thousands of beasts charged forward, shaking the surroundings. The earth rumbled and the entire valley shook violently, as if it was about to collapse. From afar, Nietian could see balls of terrifying dark aura surging above the horde of beasts. It was the evil energy of Jiao-Ing. "Tang Yuyu, step back," Nietian growled. His eyes suddenly became fierce, and he ordered Tang Yuyu to retreat to the innermost part of the valley. The first wave of attack from the horde of beasts was undoubtedly the strongest. Nietian had to stop it. The horde of beasts got closer and closer. Their overwhelming aura filled the air. 5,000 meters, 3,000 meters, 1,000 meters. Seeing that the horde of beasts was about to charge into the valley, Nietian suddenly moved. The 3 forbidden runes in his body surged out. At the same time, he activated the 3 evil sword seal. His strength rose to the early stage of the Overgod realm. He released all the power of the demons and gods. The 9 dragon veins also revolved crazily, releasing waves of terrifying dragon energy. Sword sealing, forbidden formation, world-devouring sword dragon. Nietian stomped on the ground and leaped into the air. His blood aura surged violently, clashing with the terrifying sword intent and dragon aura. Then, the power of the spell formation condensed in an instant, and a 2,000-meter-long sword dragon appeared in midair and charged toward the horde of beasts. Seeing this, Tang Yuyu was completely stunned. Her little mouth opened, but she couldn't make a sound. It was hard to imagine that Nietian's strength had reached such a level. Under the pressure of the martial prohibition formation, Nietian was able to explode with such terrifying power. His strength was unimaginable. Roar! The sword dragon flew through the air, and the earth-shattering roar of the dragon filled the air. The void trembled and the space trembled. Then, the terrifying aura pressed down crazily, colliding with the aura of 10,000 beasts. Boom! In the void, 2 terrifying auras collided. Space suddenly stagnated. as though time and space had stopped. In the next moment, boundless waves of air exploded and transformed into waves of terrifying impact force that swept out in all directions. The cliffs and boulders outside the valley were all shattered. Terrifying waves of air surged in the air, causing sand and stones to fly everywhere. Nyetian stood in midair. Feeling the violent impact, his body trembled and he was sent flying, leaving a trail of blood in the air. Nyetian. Seeing this, Tang Yu couldn't help but exclaim. Her beautiful eyes couldn't help but tremble. The power of 10,000 beasts was too strong. Even if Nyetian gave it his all, he was still slightly inferior. Nyetian had already used all his strength. The pressure that his martial body had to withstand was immense. In addition, he had to withstand the terrifying impact head-on. Of course, he was unable to resist. Bang! His body, like a lead bullet, smashed into the side of the cliff and sunk deep into the ground. Nyetian. Rui Qinyu was inside the cave. Witnessing this scene, she couldn't help but scream. Don't be distracted. He won't die. Gao Yuhan glared at Rui Qinyu and scolded in a low voice. By now, they were preparing to use their 9-color eyes to stimulate the eye of the ghost eye. This process was extremely dangerous. One moment of distraction, and Tang 13th's life could be lost. Gao Yuhan and Rui Qinyu would be in danger as well. In the next second, before Gao Yuhan's voice faded, Nyetian walked out from the cliff. Though he was covered in blood, his breathing was steady and his eyes were sharp. It was obvious that his life was not in danger. Nyetian took a step forward, looked at Raindrop Thousand Leaves, and said in a grim voice, I'm fine, Thousand Leaves. Just focus on saving Tang 13. Okay. Rui Qinyu nodded heavily. She let out a long breath and began to focus on what was in front of her. Nyetian stood in midair and stared at the beast horde in front of him. He mumbled, These animals sure are strong. 10,000 beasts galloped. Their combined force was, of course, very strong. Luckily, Nyetian wasn't weak. Though he was injured, he was able to block the first wave of attack. To be able to block 10,000 beasts by himself, Nyetian's capabilities were truly shocking. The beast horde gathered outside of the valley. They were very agitated, but they didn't rush in. Nyetian looked into the cave. Gao Yuhan and Rui Qinyu had already begun to infuse the power of the rainbow pupils into the eye of the ghost eye. The evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet became even more violent. At the same time, the beast horde outside of the valley felt the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet and became agitated. They let out violent roars. You animals, I want to see which one of you dares to be the first to die. Nyetian stepped out and landed at the entrance of the valley. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. Just like that, he blocked the entrance of the valley, one man holding the pass against 10,000 enemies. Roar! Finally, a giant black wolf couldn't take it anymore. It was the first to attack. Its 10-meter-long body leaped up and pounced at Nyetian. One sword die. Nyetian didn't even look at it. The starry sky flashed, and the shadow of the sword flew by. The giant wolf was cut in half and died on the spot. Right now, Nyetian had activated all 3 forbidden techniques and was in a berserk state. Even if these beasts attacked him together, he wasn't afraid. He was the gate of death for these beasts. Everyone that came would die. The strongest wave of attack from the beast horde was the first wave. Nyetian blocked the first wave and was basically out of danger. However, he couldn't maintain this state for long. He could only hope that Gao Yuhan and Rui Qinyu could help Tang 13 complete the mutation of the eye of the ghost eye. Immediately afterwards, countless god beasts charged madly towards Nyetian, but all of them died under his sword. At the entrance of the valley, sword rays flashed and the air was bloody. The power of the beast was about to pile up and block the entrance. Inside the cave, Gao Yuhan and Rui Qinyu released the power of their 9-color eyes. They slowly poured into the eye of the ghost eye and stimulated it. During this process, Gao Yuhan was the main force while Rui Qinyu only played a supporting role. Rui Qinyu felt the power of Gao Yuhan's 9-color eyes at such a close distance. She was shocked. She could feel that Gao Yuhan's power was much stronger than hers. It was hundreds or even thousands of times stronger. Rui Qinyu already had 5 eyes. She guessed that Gao Yuhan had at least 7 or 8 eyes. It was even possible that she had all 9 eyes. She had always wanted to ask Gao Yuhan how she resisted the power of the 9 color eyes. However, she felt that this was Gao Yuhan's secret, and she couldn't reveal it to others. At this moment, as the power of the 9 color eyes continued to pour in, the eye of the ghost eye started to change. It started to release waves of strange power. If one looked closely, they would notice that the power of the eye of the ghost eye had changed slightly. It became darker and more evil. Chapter 1733. A power was a very special power. It was different from elemental energy and also different from bright spirit power. Elemental energy was a lower level than bright spirit power. However, as a warrior grew stronger, elemental energy would gradually transform into bright spirit power. But a power was different. No matter how strong a warrior was, a power would only increase. Perhaps there would be some slight changes to the elemental energy, but it would never transform into another power. Different elemental eye powers could affect each other. The rainbow pupil was the strangest of the other eyes because it actually had 9 pupils. Each pupil had a different elemental attribute. This was very scary. Gao Yuhan used the variable elemental attributes of the rainbow pupil to stimulate the dark ghost pupil and make it merge with the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet. Of all the other eyes, only the ghost pupil could merge with the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet. This was because the 2 elemental attributes were both dark and dark. The ghost pupil slowly released its eye power and slowly merged with the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet. Gao Yuhan's face was calm, but she was very nervous. She did not know what would happen after the ghost pupil merged with the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet. If the power was too strong, then Tang 13's ghost pupil would be destroyed. If it was serious, then he would lose his life. As the ghost pupil started to merge with the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet, the beasts outside the valley began to calm down. They were no longer as violent as before. Phew! Nie Tian let out a long breath of turbid air, his expression somewhat relaxed. If the beasts continued to charge, he would not be able to hold on much longer. Seeing that the beasts had stabilized, Nie Tian's aura dissipated and his strength returned to normal. His face, however, was pale as paper. He had used too much energy and was at the end of his rope. Nie Tian, are you okay? Tang Yu stepped forward and asked anxiously. Nie Tian forced a smile and swallowed a divine pill. His complexion improved a little, and he said, I just used too much energy. I will be fine after some rest. 3 forbidden skills, 3 evil sword range, and self-igniting blood. Even though Nie Tian had the chaotic original coffin, he would need to rest for days to fully recover. Moreover, the 3 forbidden techniques consumed a lot of energy, and the forbidden technique runes needed a long time to recover. If Nie Tian activated the 3 forbidden techniques again, he probably wouldn't be as powerful as before. Moreover, the frequent use of the 3 great forbidden techniques would cause the forbidden technique runes to increase very slowly. At this time, Nie Tian's forbidden rune was only at the low mystic rank. It was still far from the peak of the high heaven rank. Nie Tian looked at the beast horde outside the valley and secretly sealed the chaotic flame in the fire beacon crossbow. If something unexpected happened, he could immediately use the crossbow to deal with it. At this moment, as the aura of Jiu Ying's evil energy weakened, the herd of beasts began to retreat. After a while, the horde of beasts had already disappeared, leaving only countless corpses of divine beasts piled up outside the valley entrance. Nie Tian took a deep breath, and his expression finally relaxed. He took a step forward and entered the cave. At this time, the evil energy of Jiu Ying around Tang 13 was very little. The remaining evil energy began to slowly flow into the eye of the ghost eye. Nie Tian looked at Gao Yuhan and Rui Qinyu. Both of them were bleeding from the corner of their eyes. It was obvious that they had overused their ocular powers. Are you guys okay? Tian was very nervous and asked in a low voice. We're fine. We'll be fine after some rest. Gao Yuhan nodded slightly and looked at Tang 13. The eye of the ghost eye has already been infused with the evil energy of Jiuying. No one knows what will happen to the eye of the ghost eye. We can only wait for him to wake up. Tian nodded and hastily expressed his gratitude. Yes, many thanks, Elder. From the looks of it, everything was going well. They just had to wait for Tang 13 to wake up. No need to thank me. I have done all this for a price. Gao Yuhan looked at Tian and said coldly. Tian froze and asked directly, Elder, what do you want me to do for you? Now is not the time. When the time is right, I will tell you. Gao Yuhan's expression was cold. You just need to remember that I saved your friend. That's enough. Tian was confused. He couldn't guess what Gao Yuhan was thinking. You guys go rest. I will stay here and watch over him. Gao Yuhan didn't explain too much and said in a low voice. Tian nodded. He didn't hesitate and walked to a narrow corner of the cave. He sat in a lotus position and began to recover his body. He really did need to rest. Only when his energy recovered can his fighting abilities return to their peak. For the next few days, Tian rested and trained hard. What surprised him was that Tang 13 had been unconscious for days and hadn't woken up. Still not awake? Inside the cave, Tian stood up. He had recovered to his peak condition, but Tang 13 was still unconscious. Tian really didn't think that the mutation of the ghost would take so long. Don't rush. The longer he's unconscious, the stronger the fusion between the ghost eye and the evil energy of the nine-headed snakelet. Gao Yuhan spoke softly, but she was nervous. This was because she knew that the stronger the fusion of the ghost eye with the evil energy of Jiuying, the greater the danger Tang 13 would face. Tang 13 was too weak right now. If she couldn't handle this power, it would be bad. Tian felt Tang 13's breathing. It was very stable, so he wasn't too worried. Another 2 days passed. Why hasn't he woken up? Gao Yuhan stared at Tang 13, unable to hide the nervousness in her voice. She could even feel the hidden power in Tang 13's eyes. It made her feel fear. The fusion of the ghost eye and the evil energy of the nine-headed snakelet far exceeded Gao Yuhan's expectation. 13. Tang Yu looked at Tang 13, his face nervous and worried. Tian's face was heavy as well, worried about Tang 13's safety. Just then, Gao Yuhan seemed to have sensed something. Her expression changed, and she cried out in surprise. Seeing her reaction, everyone froze and stared at Tang 13. Tang 13 was lying flat on the ground. Her eyes were closed, but her eyeballs were spinning rapidly. It was as if they weren't eyeballs anymore, but two terrifying whirlpools. Such power! Tian sensed the terrifying power surging in Tang 13's eyes. His expression changed, and he screamed inwardly. Gao Yuhan's eyes were shaking as well. She wasn't sure what would happen next. Right now, everyone's nerves were taut, and their hearts were in their throats. After a while, Tang 13's eyeballs stopped spinning. Everyone froze. In the next second, Tang 13's eyes opened. The moment everyone saw those eyes, they all gasped. Their faces were full of shock. Chapter 17:34. The moment Tang 13 opened his ghost eye, everyone stared into his eyes, dumbfounded. Those eyes were far too scary. Like a bottomless abyss, they constantly emitted dark energy. The entire space was filled with coldness. Tian was a little nervous, afraid that something terrifying would happen. But in the next second, Tang 13's eyes slowly returned to normal. Finally, they returned to normal and looked no different from a normal person. Everyone was shocked and stared at Tang 13 in disbelief. At this moment, Tang 13 stood up and looked at everyone with confusion. She asked, "Are you guys okay? Why are you all looking at me like that?" Everyone froze again and couldn't react for a long time. 13, are you okay? After a while, Tang Yu was the first to react. He took a step forward, looked at Tang 13 with a face full of joy, and shouted in surprise. "I'm okay." Tang 13 grinned. Her face was calm, as if she didn't know she had been asleep for 5 to 6 days. Tian stood where he was, thinking that Tang 13 had lost her memory. But Tang 13's condition was very good. It was obvious that she didn't lose her memory. Nie Tian checked Tang 13's breathing and didn't find anything strange. He relaxed a little. Gao Yuhan also checked Tang 13's condition and didn't find anything strange. I need to leave now. Seeing that Tang 13 had woken up and was fine, Gao Yuhan didn't stay any longer. She bid farewell and left. Nie Tian looked at the gradually disappearing figure, and his eyes couldn't help but flicker. Gao Yuhan was a mysterious person. She had been helping Nie Tian intentionally or unintentionally. If she was only helping Rui Qinyu, Nie Tian could understand. After all, Rui Qinyu was the same as her. They both had colored eyes. However, Gao Yuhan had helped Nie Tian many times. This time, she saved Tang 13. This was very strange. It was obvious that Gao Yuhan had something she wanted Nie Tian to do, but she didn't say it out loud. Also, Gao Yuhan reminded Rui Qinyu not to use her colored eyes. However, when she had saved Duan Tianhin, she had used her rainbow pupils. A few days ago, when they were saving Tang 13, Gao Yuhan and Rui Qinyu also used the rainbow pupils. Also, Gao Yuhan had said that Duan Tianhin had the fifth seal and couldn't die. What did that mean? Vaguely, Nie Tian felt that Gao Yuhan was plotting something. His intuition told him that all of this might be related to the forbidden land of the 9 infants. Gao Yuhan previously said that she knew nothing about the forbidden ground of the 9-headed infants, but she mentioned the evil energy of the 9-headed infant and the 9-headed infant demon cocoon. Nie Tian felt that Gao Yuhan was like a mystery that he could not see clearly. However, he did not think too much about it. The most important thing now was to survive in the forbidden land of 9 infants. As for the future, he would think about it in the future. Next, Nie Tian decided to rest in the cave for a few days. At the very least, he wanted to wait until Tang 13's condition stabilized. After nightfall, Rui Qinyu and Tang Yuyu were already asleep. Nie Tian stood in the valley with Tang 13 beside him. All of a sudden, Tang 13 said, Nie Tian, I have something to tell you. Nie Tian turned to look at Tang 13. The latter's expression was serious, and she seemed very worried. Let's go out and talk. Tang 13 looked back at the valley and said carefully, Okay. Nie Tian nodded slightly and walked out of the valley with Tang 13. The two of them stopped at a place not far from the valley. Nie Tian asked, Tang 13, what happened? Tang 13's expression was not right. She seemed very nervous. Nie Tian, I've sensed something. Tang 13 nodded and said, When the eye of the ghost eye and the evil energy of the 9-headed infant merged, some images appeared in my head. What images? Nie Tian was shocked and asked. Images of the demon cocoon of the 9-headed infant. Tang 13's eyes were serious. The demon cocoon of the 9-headed infant is about to awaken. Awaken? Nie Tian froze and asked, What does that mean? He didn't even know what the demon cocoon of the 9-headed infant was. Of course, he couldn't understand what it meant. I don't know either. Tang 13 shook her head and said, I just have a feeling that something scary is about to happen. Nie Tian frowned. It seemed like something had happened to Tang 13. He just didn't reveal it right away. He was probably afraid that Tang Yuyu would worry. Nie Tian, do you think the evil energy of the 9-headed infant is scary? Tang 13's eyes flickered, and she suddenly asked, Scary? Nie Tian nodded heavily. He had felt the evil energy of the 9-headed infant before. It was dark and suffocating. How strong do you think my eye of the ghost eye is now? Tang 13's lips twitched, and she asked in a low voice. What do you mean? Nie Tian stared at Tang 13 and froze. Tang 13's silhouette flashed, and she retreated hundreds of meters away from Nie Tian. She said, Make your move. I will let you feel how strong the eye of the ghost eye is now. Nie Tian's eyes froze, and he smiled. He was curious as well. What kind of changes did the mutated eye of the ghost eye undergo? Without hesitation, Nie Tian activated the 3 demonic sword pulses inside his body. At the same time, 32 rays of demonic and divine energy were released. Around him, a terrifying amount of sword energy surged. Yes. Tang 13 stared at Nye Tian and nodded heavily. Without hesitation, Nye Tian slashed out with his sword. The sword shadow howled and headed towards Tang 13. Tang 13 stood where she was, her eyes trembled slightly. After which, a strange gust of energy was released from her eyes, forming a black claw in the air. It grabbed onto the sword's shadow, and a terrifying amount of energy exploded. The sword shadow was instantly destroyed, and the sword will dissipated into the air. Such terrifying power. Nye Tian's eyes couldn't help but tremble at the sight before him, and he exclaimed in shock. Of course, the attack just now wasn't his strongest attack. However, he used the power of the demonic and divine in addition to the 3 demonic sword pulses. This wasn't something normal warriors could handle. But Tang 13 merely blinked her eyes and broke through Nye Tian's attack. This was too terrifying. Tang 13's Eye of the Ghost, I was obviously only used a little, and she didn't use her full strength. If she did, Nye Tian would have been severely injured. In the blink of an eye, Nye Tian sensed that Tang 13's eye power contained an extremely evil power, which strengthened his own eye power by several times. Right now, if Tang 13 used the Eye of the Ghost eye to fight against Nye Tian, it would be hard to say who would win. The Eye of the Ghost eye is combined with the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet. It sure is scary. Nye Tian became cold and smiled. Tang 13 walked over, her face dark. Nye Tian, the evil energy of a 9-headed snakelet that I combined with came from the demon cocoon of the 9-headed snakelet's forbidden ground. But compared to the evil energy of a 9-headed snakelet in the cocoon, this energy is like a drop in the ocean. Nye Tian's eyes widened, and his expression froze for a few seconds. After he regained his composure, he stuttered. You mean to say that the demon cocoon of the 9-headed snakelet contains unimaginable power? Chapter 1735. In a 9-infants mountain range, in a dense forest, Nye Tian stared at Tang 13, speechless for a long time. What Tang 13 was worried about was the awakening of the demon cocoon. Even though he did not know what the demon cocoon was from the mutated ghost eye, he could tell that the power contained within the demon cocoon was absolutely terrifying. Nye Tian, I can sense that the 9-headed fierce demon cocoon lives by devouring the blood chi of martial artists. If the demon cocoon awakens, it will definitely kill all the warriors. Tang 13 looked at Nye Tian and said in a low voice, This. Nye Tian took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. What was the demon cocoon? It was so terrifying. What was the relationship between the 9-infants' heaven and the demon cocoon? Everything was like a riddle in Nye Tian's heart. Nye Tian, we have to stop the demon cocoon from awakening. Tang 13 looked at Nye Tian and said in a heavy tone. He did not know what the demon cocoon was, but he had a strong desire to stop the demon cocoon from awakening. Nye Tian pondered. After a while, he let out a long breath and said, Looks like if we're going to find out everything, we have to enter the forbidden ground of the 9-infants. Originally, Nye Tian thought that Tang 13 was not in danger and that they did not need to enter the forbidden ground of the 9-infants. But now, it seemed like they still had to enter the forbidden ground of the 9-infants to find out. Nye Tian and Tang 13 did not waste any more time and immediately returned to the valley. They decided that tomorrow morning they would start thinking of ways to enter the forbidden ground of the 9-infants. The next morning, Nye Tian and Tang 13 walked out of the cave. The two did not show anything, their faces calm as usual. Then, Nye Tian and the others left the valley. Walking in the forest, the 4 of them were very cautious. The forbidden ground of the 9-infants had lasted for almost half a month. They did not know how many of the 180 participants were still alive. Nye Tian and the others slowly approached the forbidden ground of the 9-infants and stopped about 10,000 meters away. If he were to get any closer, he might attract the attention of the guards. Nye Tian, what do we do now? Tang 13 looked at Nye Tian and asked. They had seen the guards of the forbidden ground of 9-headed infants. Every single one of them was a paramount god martial artist. What was more frightening was that these guards could ignore the restrictions of the martial way. Their vital meridians and godheads were not suppressed at all. With Nietian and Tang 13 strength, trying to barge into the forbidden ground of the nine-headed infant was no different from seeking death. Nietian furrowed his brows. He had no other choice. Trying to use a low-level trick like luring the tiger away from the mountain to lure away the guards of the forbidden area was simply impossible. Moreover, Nietian did not know how many guards were guarding the forbidden land of nine infants. After thinking for a long time, Nietian really couldn't think of a good way. His forehead was covered in sweat. Nietian, if you want to enter the nine infants' forbidden ground, there's only one way. Just then, the fat cat's voice suddenly rang out. Nietian went blank for a moment before asking, "What is it?" "Find that elder for help." The corner of the fat cat's mouth twitched, and she said, "Find her." Nietian was stunned. Gao Yuhan's face appeared in his mind. His eyes couldn't help but flicker. Fat Cat was right. It was impossible for Nietian and the others to enter the forbidden land of nine infants by themselves. The only way was to ask Gao Yuhan for help. However, Nietian wasn't sure if Gao Yuhan would help. That elder hides herself very well. I'm afraid she wants to know the secrets of the forbidden land of nine infants more than you do. The fat cat laughed and said, "As long as you find her, I believe she will help." Nietian's face darkened. He really didn't know where the fat cat got her confidence from. However, Nietian and the others really had no other choice but to ask Gao Yuhan for help. However, the problem now was that Nietian didn't know where Gao Yuhan was. Previously, Gao Yuhan always appeared on her own. It wasn't easy for Nietian to find her. That elder seems to be very interested in the fifth seal. Maybe if we find the fifth seal, we will be able to find her. The fat cat laughed and reminded Nietian, "Duan Tianhen." Nietian's eyes narrowed and the corner of his mouth twitched. Gao Yuhan was indeed very interested in Duan Tianhen's fifth seal. Maybe she was following Duan Tianhen. However, Duan Tianhen wouldn't be easy to find. The Nine Infants mountain range was so big. It was indeed not easy to find one person. Nietian thought and said in his heart, Duan Tianhen was with absolute ice. I can find absolute ice first. However, I don't have the ice demon silk. It won't be easy to find absolute ice. After thinking for a while, Nietian made a decision and sent a telepathic message to Tang 13. Tang 13, let's leave this place first and find Lan Yiru. Nietian had a deep hatred for Lan Yiru and absolute ice. The latter would know how to deal with absolute ice. All right, Tang 13 nodded slightly. There was no point in waiting here. The four of them didn't stay any longer. They left immediately and sprinted in the direction where Lan Yiru had set up the valley's killing array. After a while, Nietian and the others arrived at a wide area. In front of them was a dense forest. The valley's killing array was in the dense forest. At this moment, Nietian's expression suddenly changed and his eyes darkened. He heard the sounds of fighting in the distance. Let's go take a look. Nietian's figure flashed, and he flew over. Tang 13 and the others followed closely. At the same time, in a dense forest tens of thousands of meters away, a fierce battle was going on. In midair, two figures were facing each other. It was Absolute Ice and Lan Yiru. Below them, there were also two figures. One was Duan Tianhen, the other was Gue Wuchan. Both of them were watching the battle and had no intention of joining in. Lan Yiru, do you think you can kill me with your strength? Absolute Ice smiled cold. His eyes flickered with disdain. He knew that Lan Yiru was a divine array master, and her combat ability was not strong. Absolute Ice, you kill my sister. I will kill you. Lan Yiru stood in the air, her blue robe fluttering in the wind. She was shrouded in a large array, and the runes of the array circulated around her body. Absolute Ice sneered. With a look of disdain, he said coldly, Your Lan family was originally a vassal family of our Bing family. It was your sister's fortune that I took a liking to her. Not only did she not know how to be grateful, she even wanted to kill me. A bitch like her deserves to die 100 times over. Bingju, shut your mouth. Lan Yiru's beautiful eyes flickered. She shouted and moved. The runes of the array around her surged and condensed into a giant palm that slammed towards Absolute Ice. Bitch from the Lawn family, you're asking for it. Absolute Ice sneered. His face was full of disdain. The demonic ice silk around him surged, and he slammed his palm down. A black claw appeared like a ghost, sharp and murderous. Kaboom! The two palms collided and the void shook violently. The palm of the array crumbled, and the black claw slammed towards Lan Yiru like a mountain. Lan Yiru was too weak to fight Bing Ju head-on. Miss Lan, upon seeing this, Gue Wukong couldn't help but cry out in alarm. With a stomp of his feet, his figure soared into the sky, and his sword violently rumbled out. Chapter 1736. Duan Tianhin growled when he saw that Gue Wukong had made his move. His body moved, and he struck out with his palm. Gue Wukong could feel Duan Tianhin's imposing manner. His eyes narrowed and trembled. Stay here, Duan Tianhin roared. Not only did he block Gue Wukong's sword, but he also forced him to retreat. On the other side, the black claw descended from the sky. It was less than 10 meters away from Lan Yiru. At such a close distance, the formation runes around Lan Yiru shattered one by one. She felt a bone-chilling cold pressing down on her, freezing her blood and meridians in an instant. Lan Yiru died. Bing Ju's voice reverberated in the air. It was cold and ruthless. Lan Yiru's eyes flickered. There was no fear in her eyes, only endless anger. She was not afraid of death. She was unwilling to be able to avenge her sister. But in that moment of life and death, something happened. Boom! Just as the black claw was about to claim his life, the void shook strangely, and a sharp black light whistled out. It was like a sharp arrow, and it was extremely murderous. It actually shattered the black claw. The sudden scene shocked Bing Ju. His eyes trembled as he looked into the distance. Miss Lan, are you all right? Nia Tian and Tang 13 landed and asked in unison. The black light was released by Tang 13's ghost eye. It saved Lan Yiru's life. I'm fine. Lan Yiru saw Nia Tian and Tang 13 suddenly appear. Her expression changed to one of joy. Nia Tian, it's you again. Bing Ju's eyes locked onto Nia Tian as soon as he saw who had appeared in front of him. That's right, it's me again. Nia Tian smiled faintly. There was a hint of joy in his eyes. He was lucky to meet Bing Ju and the others here. Most importantly, Duan Tianhin was here as well. Nia Tian. Gue Wukong's figure flashed, arriving beside Nia Tian as he shouted out in delight. Gue Wutsan, are you all right? Looking at Gue Wutsan, Nia Tian used his divine sense to check on him. Upon confirming that the latter was fine, he felt more at ease. It had to be said that Gue Wuchan was indeed very strong. He was actually able to face Duan Tianhin head-on without suffering any injuries. Furthermore, Nia Tian could faintly feel that there was a high possibility that Gue Wuchan was still concealing his strength. You've come at the right time. This time, I'll kill all of you. When Duan Tianhin saw Nia Tian arrive, there was no fear in his eyes. Instead, there was an intense killing intent. Last time, he almost died in the hands of Nia Tian, but now, he didn't fear Nia Tian at all. This was not normal. Nia Tianling looked at Duan Tianhin coldly. His eyes were filled with disdain as he said, You are not qualified. Arrogant. Duan Tianhin was infuriated by Nia Tian's words. With a furious roar, the wind thunder celestial seal around him surged crazily, releasing waves of frightening power from his body. Nia Tian couldn't help but narrow his eyes when he saw this scene. He sensed another kind of aura from Duan Tianhin's body, the Ice Fiend's silk. It turned out that Duan Tianhin and Bing Ju had joined hands to obtain the Ice Fiend's silk from the latter. Upon closer inspection, the aura of the Ice Fiend's silk on Duan Tianhin's body was somewhat different from that of Bing Ju. There seemed to be another unique aura. Nia Tian, I'll take your life with this palm strike. Duan Tianhin let out a wild laugh. His blood-red eyes seemed to only have Nia Tian in them. He took a step forward, and the aura around him surged out violently. It was like a raging wave that surged in the air. Tian stood in midair and motioned for the others to step back. Duan Tianen's body already possessed the fifth seal that could resist martial arts restrictions. Now that he had fused with the power of the Ice Fiend Silk, his resistance against martial arts restrictions became even more obvious. Judging from his aura, Duan Tianhen could exert strength equivalent to that of a peak overgod. On the other hand, Tian only possessed early-stage high god strength and was being suppressed by martial arts restrictions. The difference in strength was too obvious. Duan Tianhen, since you want to fight, I'll fight with you. Tian let out a deep roar. Forbidden runes gushed out from his body as he simultaneously activated the three great forbidden techniques. At the same time, he released the tri-evil sword vein. A towering sword aura pervaded the air. Duan Tianhen was extremely powerful. Tian had to go all out against him. It's still those black runes. Duan Tianhen's lips curled into a cold smile when he saw Tian release the forbidden runes again. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Tian die. Duan Tianhen was extremely fearful of Tian. He would never let go of an opportunity to kill Tian. He let out a furious roar and slammed his palm down. A thunderous palm energy surged in the void. A gigantic black palm that filled the heavens and earth came crashing down. In an instant, the space around it tightened and the entire world seemed tiny. Tian, watch out. Rui Qinyu's heart tightened and she cried out. Duan Tianen's strength had increased by several times after fusing with the power of the Ice Fiend Silk. It was extremely terrifying. Tian suddenly raised his head and stared at the gigantic black palm above his head. He thrust the starlight heavenly slash straight at it. Boom! In an instant, sword will, blood chi, and forbidden runes mixed together in a frenzy. 1,000-meter-long sword shadow appeared and soared into the sky. Boom! The next moment, the sword shadow bombarded the gigantic black palm. The gigantic black palm suddenly stopped. In an instant, it was as if time had stopped. There was a low rumbling sound in the air. Endless waves of air rippled out from the center of the collision. The mountains, rocks, grass, and trees within a 1,000-meter radius were directly destroyed. Boom! The two forces collided. They were extremely powerful. They were unable to destroy each other immediately. There was a temporary stalemate. There was a continuous ear-piercing sound in the air. It was the terrifying force that was frantically colliding and devouring each other. Everyone else was stunned. They didn't expect that the first exchange between Tian and Duan Tianhen would be so terrifying. Kaboom! Right at this moment, a cracking sound was heard, and a terrifying crack appeared on the huge sword shadow. Then, the entire sword shadow cracked inch by inch and collapsed in an instant. Endless sword will rushed into the void, but it couldn't stop the gigantic palm from descending. Huh? Tian's eyes narrowed. He suddenly felt a terrifying pressure fall on his head. It was as if there was a huge rock pressing on his chest. It made him feel like he was suffocating. Die. Seeing this, Duan Tianhen roared. His aura surged, and the wind and thunder seals surged. The terrifying palm landed with a loud rumble. Rumble. Crack. 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 In the next moment, the palm shadow landed. The earth trembled as if there was an earthquake. The terrifying force surged and the ground cracked. There was a 1,000-meter wide crater on the ground. Tian's body was directly swallowed by the palm shadow. He was deeply embedded into the ground. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Tian. The sudden scene stunned everyone. Then Rui Qinyu and the others screamed and stared blankly at the huge crater. Rui Qinyu's eyes trembled. Tears welled up in her eyes. Haha, you'll definitely die if you take my palm head on. Duan Tianhen stood in midair and laughed wildly. Tian, your strength is only SOSO. Is that so? However, before he could finish his sentence, a cold voice rang out. Chapter 1737. Tian shot into the air. He stood in the air. Although he was covered in blood, his aura was extremely sharp like a sword. Tian. Rui Qinyu's eyes trembled when she saw the silver-haired figure in the air. Hot tears rolled down her cheeks. The others were stunned. They stared at Nye Tian in disbelief, as if they had seen a ghost. Nye Tian, why you're not dead? Duan Tianhin looked at Nye Tian. His expression was uneasy and his voice was trembling. He had never expected that Nye Tian would be able to survive his palm strike. Just how powerful was Nye Tian's martial body? I've said it before. You don't have the right to kill me. Nye Tianling replied coldly. His body trembled and the blood on his body was washed away. His eyes were sharp and murderous. It had to be said that Duan Tianen's palm strike was indeed terrifying. Even though Nye Tian had gone all out with his sword, he still couldn't block that palm strike. Fortunately, his martial body was strong enough. Coupled with the timely use of the Astral Soul Shield and the Extreme Wind Heavenly Armor, he managed to survive. Duan Tianen's current strength had exceeded Nye Tian's expectations. It was indeed rather troublesome. Nye Tian, you've angered me. Duan Tianhin roared furiously when he sensed the disdain in Nye Tian's eyes. The celestial seal of wind and lightning around him became extremely violent. Coupled with the power of the Ice Fiend's silk, a terrifying power of wind and lightning surged behind him. The celestial seal of wind and lightning possessed the elements of wind and lightning. The power of the Ice Fiend's silk possessed 3 elements. It was extremely terrifying. Nye Tian frowned. His face was extremely gloomy. He currently had the strength of an early overgod after activating the 3 forbidden techniques. Under normal circumstances, he could easily kill peak overgods. However, he was suppressed by the martial restrictions. Even with the power of the demons and gods helping him resist the restrictions, his true strength was only that of a mid or late high god at most. Under such circumstances, it would be difficult for him to fight Duan Tianhin head-on. Nye Tian, I really want to see what gives you the right to be so arrogant. Duan Tianhin roared in a low voice. His silhouette flickered as he howled. 5 thunders overhead. With a palm strike, 5 streams of black wind and lightning energy appeared. They were like 5 giant snakes, coiling in the void. The surrounding space froze as a terrifying wind and lightning energy surged between the heaven and earth. Boom, 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 boom. 5 bolts of wind and lightning roared out at the same time, blasting towards Nye Tian. A terrifying aura filled the air, as if it wanted to tear the world apart. Everyone's heart tightened, and their eyes trembled. Duan Tianhin was truly terrifying. He completely disregarded everything and wanted to kill Nye Tian. Nye Tian furrowed his brows as a pair of astral wings appeared on his back. At the same time, he activated the forbidden space art of the astral river as he slashed out with his sword. The sword's shadow split into 5, blocking the 5 streams of wind and lightning. Duan Tianhin's silhouette flickered as he retreated several steps before stabilizing himself. He stared at Nye Tian with a look of terror on his face. Nye Tian flapped his astral wings in midair, stabilizing himself. Traces of blood could be seen at the corner of his mouth, and his countenance was as pale as a sheet of paper. It was extremely unsightly to behold. 3 forbidden techniques, the 3 demonic sword range, and the release of fiend god energy. This was already a huge burden on his martial physique. Now that he activated the forbidden space art of the astral river, his martial physique was already pushed to its limits. Under such circumstances, Nye Tian wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Nye Tian, your strength has far exceeded my expectations. However, I believe that you won't be able to maintain your current state for long. Duan Tianhin couldn't help but smile sinisterly when he saw how pale Nye Tian's countenance was. He retreated slightly. There was no need for him to clash head-on with Nye Tian now. As long as he waited for Nye Tian to reach his limits, he would be able to kill him in one fell swoop. It's enough to kill you. The corners of Nye Tian's lips curled up into a cold smile as a terrifying killing intent flashed in his eyes. In the next instant, his silhouette flickered as he unleashed the astral heavenly slash. Sharp sword shadows whistled through the air as they slashed towards Duan Tianhen. Duan Tianhen coldly laughed. He didn't choose to clash head-on with Nie Tian. Instead, he struck out with his palm and retreated madly, dodging the attack head-on. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. Duan Tianhen didn't want to clash head-on with him. This was extremely troublesome. At this moment, the astral energy in his body, the power of the forbidden runes, Yuan Qi, and spirit energy were all being depleted rapidly. If he couldn't defeat or kill Duan Tianhen in this short period of time, he would definitely be the one to lose. Mad Doomsday counterattack. Thinking of this, Nie Tian's eyes trembled as he stabbed out with his sword. The sword was extremely fast, and it moved like a bolt of lightning towards Duan Tianhen. Duan Tianhen coldly laughed once again as he struck out with his palm. A wave of ice energy appeared and condensed into an ice shield that enveloped his entire body. Pong! The sword's shadow landed, and the ice shield immediately shattered. Duan Tianhen's body swayed, but he wasn't injured. The speed of Nie Tian's attack was so fast that Duan Tianhen couldn't dodge it. However, the power of the attack was too weak, and it couldn't hurt Duan Tianhen at all. Nie Tian, you can't hold on much longer. The corners of Duan Tianhen's lips curled up as a look of disdain appeared in his eyes. Nie Tian steadied himself as he frowned. Blood flowed continuously from the corner of his mouth. This kind of situation consumed too much of his martial body, and he couldn't bear it. Calm down, Nie Tian roared in his heart. At a time like this, he had to be even more calm. Nie Tian let out a long sigh. His eyes trembled slightly, but his expression was much calmer. What? You don't dare to attack anymore? Duan Tianhen coldly laughed, his eyes full of disdain. Next move, I'll kill you. The corners of Nie Tian's mouth twitched, and a crossbow appeared in his hands. With a single thought, the flames of primal chaos surged into the fire beacon crossbow. Without any hesitation, the fire beacon crossbow shot out with all its might. A sky full of sharp arrows whistled through the air, instantly exploding into a sea of fire that pressed down on Duan Tianhen. You want to hurt me with this kind of attack? Ridiculous. Seeing this, the disdain in Duan Tianhen's eyes became even more obvious. He coldly laughed, and an ice shield appeared around him once again. The endless sea of fire rushed towards him, and Nie Tian's figure followed it. Nie Tian, what is he doing? When the crowd saw that Nie Tian was rushing towards Duan Tianhen, they couldn't help but exclaim in their hearts, what is Nie Tian doing? The final move of the AO sword technique's 3 ultimate moves, Peerless Sword Spirit. In midair, Nie Tian's wings flapped wildly, and he thrust out the starlight heaven slash. The sword will on the blade roared. He can't hold on anymore. Seeing this, the corners of Duan Tianhen's mouth twitched, and he couldn't hide the joy in his eyes. He concluded that as long as he blocked Nie Tian's sword, Nie Tian would lose the ability to fight again. Duan Tianhen believed that this last move posed no threat to him at all. Nie Tian's figure was like lightning as he charged towards Duan Tianhen. However, the sword will on the blade of his sword was not released. Huh? What is he doing? Seeing that Nie Tian was getting closer and closer to him, Duan Tianhen couldn't help but frown. There was a faint sense of unease in his heart. In a battle between godly state warriors, the distance between them was usually thousands or even tens of thousands of meters. However, Nie Tian was charging towards him. What was he trying to do? Chapter 1738. Nie Tian was in midair. The corners of his lips curled up in an evil smile. His eyes trembled slightly. Then, a frightening spiritual attack surged out and enveloped Duan Tianhen. Activating absolute confinement was his goal in approaching Duan Tianhen. Duan Tianhen didn't fight Nie Tian head-on. He seemed to be toying with Nie Tian. He was very pleased with himself. His eyes were filled with disdain. Under these circumstances, it was the best time to launch a spiritual attack. Nie Tian's use of the fire beacon crossbow was just a feint. How could he not know that the crossbow's attack could not hurt Duan Tianhen at all? He wanted to give Duan Tianhen a false impression. He wanted Duan Tianhen to think that he was panicking. The more pleased Duan Tianhen was, the weaker the defenses of his divine sense became. The divine sense of a godly state martial artist was already very strong. Moreover, Tion's absolute confinement would not be effective from a distance, especially against an expert like Duan Tianhen. Therefore, he could only take a risk and fight with his life on the line. If the absolute confinement did not affect Duan Tianhen, then he would really be in danger. Duan Tianhen was in a state of shock and bewilderment when he suddenly felt a frightening mental attack, causing him to involuntarily cry out in alarm. In the next moment, his eyes trembled and actually lost their light, becoming lifeless. This is the moment. Seeing that Duan Tianhen was momentarily distracted, Tian couldn't help but inwardly exclaim as he unleashed the sword intent he had accumulated on his sword. In the next moment, countless sword projections condensed into a deadly sword projection that shot towards Duan Tianhen. Duan Tianhen had lost control of his divine sense. He had no defense at all. Under these circumstances, he was in great danger. Boom! The sword shadow was like a mountain. It brought with it a frightening, murderous intent. Duan Tianhen's divine sense was very strong. He reacted in an instant. However, the sword shadow was already in front of him. He wanted to act, but it was too late. Bang! The next moment, there was a muffled sound. Duan Tianhen's figure was sent flying. He was like a meteor that crashed into the ground. Boom! A wave of dirt rose from the ground. The surroundings were all muddy. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them with their mouths agape, and their expressions became sluggish. No one knew what had happened. They couldn't imagine how Tian had defeated Duan Tianhen. Duan Tianhen. At this moment, a low voice sounded out. Immediately after, a gust of wind swept past, sweeping away the soil on the ground. Duan Tianhen's figure lay in a deep pit on the ground. His body was a bloody mess, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Tian hovered in midair, scanning the area with his divine sense. When he sensed that Duan Tianhen's aura was still there, he couldn't help but smile wryly. A paramount god's martial body is really strong. He's not dead yet. Although Tian had used all his strength for the last sword strike, he was already an arrow at the end of its flight. There was not much strength left in his body. After all, Duan Tianhen was an early paramount god and had a powerful martial body. Furthermore, he also had the fifth seal, which made him many times stronger than the average early paramount god. It was precisely because of this that he was able to resist Tian's lethal strike. However, he was seriously injured. Even though he was a paramount god, it would take him 10 days to half a month to recover. In the end, Tian won the battle. Tianhen. At this time, a figure landed and picked Duan Tianhen up. When Tian saw the figure, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he said, "Lord Elder, you really showed up." The person who appeared was none other than Gao Yuhan. It was very strange. Every time Duan Tianhen was in danger, Gao Yuhan would appear. In fact, Gao Yuhan had been here for a long time, but she hadn't shown herself. Everything that had happened just now had happened so fast that Tian's sword had already descended on her before she could even react. Gao Yuhan hadn't expected that Tian would use a psychic attack in such a desperate situation and turn the tables. It had to be said that Tian was indeed a battle-type genius. If he hadn't taken the risk, the one who would have lost in the end would definitely have been him. Gao Yuhan carried Duan Tianhen in her arms. Without saying anything, she turned and left. Tang 13, follow her. Tian shouted to Tang 13 after a momentary pause. He was already exhausted. It was impossible for him to catch up to Gao Yuhan. Tang 13's body moved, and she quickly followed. Duan Tianhen, what fifth seal? Useless. Bing Ju finally reacted. He looked in the direction where Duan Tianhen disappeared and growled in his heart. He had hoped that Duan Tianhen would be able to kill Tian. Unfortunately, Duan Tianhen lost to Tian every time, and it was always a crushing defeat. Tian's figure landed. Rui Qinyu hurried forward to support him. Tian's face was deathly pale. There was no color in it. His face was emaciated, giving off the feeling that he was about to die. He had expended too much energy in the battle just now. He needed a good rest to recover. Bingju, aren't you going to scram? Nyetian turned to Bingju and said in a cold tone. Bingju took a glance at Nyetian, then swept his gaze over Lan Yiru, Gue Wushan, and the others. After a moment of pondering, he smiled coldly and said, Lan Yiru, Nyetian, let's wait and see. You'll regret going against the Bing family. With that, Bingju's figure moved and he left. Although Nyetian was heavily injured, Gue Wuchan was still there. Bingju and Gue Wuchan had fought before and he couldn't defeat the latter. Nyetian watched Bingju's disappearing figure and shook his head with a smile. Is the Bing family very powerful? Nyetian, thank you for your help. Lan Yiru walked over and bowed slightly to express her gratitude. Her eyes showed a trace of worry. Miss Lan, what are you worried about? Gue Wuchan frowned and asked. He and Lan Yiru had run into each other by chance. The two of them had chatted happily and were already very familiar with each other. Bingju isn't the strongest among the Bing family's participants in the 9-infant forbidden hunt. Lan Yiru's beautiful eyes flickered, and she looked even more worried. Nyetian went blank for a moment before he asked, Does Bingju have someone more powerful than him? Yes. Lan Yiru nodded. Bingju's aunt, Bing Shuanghan, is also participating in the 9-infant forbidden hunt. I've only seen her once, and she hasn't appeared since. But I'm sure she's in the 9-infant mountain range. Nyetian's brow furrowed as his face darkened. He didn't expect Bingju to have an aunt behind him. Bingju was already an early-stage paramount god. How strong would his aunt be? Mid-stage paramount god or late-stage paramount god? The 9-infant forbidden hunt only allowed martial artists under 10,000 years old to participate. If a mid-stage or late-stage paramount god showed up, that person's martial Dao talent was too terrifying. One had to know that those who could become a paramount god before the age of 10,000 were absolute monsters. In the 9 major realms, there were only a handful of such monsters. However, the forbidden land of martialism was an alternate dimension. Who knew if it was connected to those mysterious worlds? Bing Shuanghan isn't strong. In fact, she's even weaker than Bingju. Lan Yiru continued, but her expression changed. But she has a very powerful companion with her, the ice demon Silkworm. Chapter 1739. Nyetian's expression stiffened when he heard the words, Ice Devilish Silkworm. It took him a few seconds to recover. You know about the ice demon Silkworm? Lan Yiru asked after seeing Nyetian's reaction. Nyetian nodded and bitterly smiled. I didn't think someone would really bring an ice demon Silkworm to the 9-infant forbidden hunt. Previously, Fat Cat noticed that the ice demon Silkworm silk on Bingju and the others were new. She deduced that someone brought an ice demon Silkworm to the forbidden hunt. She didn't think her deduction was true. The ice demon Silkworm was an ancient beast that was as famous as the Golden Leo. It was easy to imagine how powerful it was. Even if Bing Shuanghan was weaker than Bingju, as Lan Yiru said, just the ice demon Silkworm by her side was terrifying enough. Nyetian took a deep breath and calmed down. He looked at Lan Yiru and asked, Miss Lan, what grudge do you have with the Bing family? Although he knew Bingju killed Lan Yiru's younger sister, he didn't know the specifics. Lan Yiru's eyes flickered and she said, Bingju and I came from the Ice Realm. The Bing family is the ruler of the Ice Realm. The Lan family is a vassal family of the Bing family. Bingju took a fancy to my younger sister and forced her to marry him. My father had to agree for the Lan family. Who knew that my younger sister would be so stubborn? She went to kill Bingju alone and was killed instead. Because of this, the Lan family was exiled to a remote place and will never be able to return to the Ice City. Then, Lan Yiru's eyes trembled, and she said, I worked so hard to get the chance to enter the forbidden land of martialism to kill Bingju and avenge my younger sister and family. However, Bingju found out who I was and sent people to follow me. Then, you and Tang 13 appeared and killed the people from the Bing family. That was the entire process. I see. Nyetian nodded. It seemed that him and Tang 13 killing the people from the Bing family was a great help to Lan Yiru. Unfortunately, Bing Ju was too powerful. It was impossible for Lan Yiru to avenge herself. Lan Yiru's talent in formations was great, but her martial abilities were nothing. She really shouldn't have joined the 9-infant Forbidden Hunt. Miss Lan, don't worry. I'll kill Bing Ju for you. At this moment, Gue Wukong took a step forward with a faint smile. His eyes were filled with determination. Yet Tian gawked at Lan Yiru. From the looks of it, Gue Wukong's actions were truly taking the initiative to express goodwill to Lan Yiru. Yet Tian did not doubt Gue Wukong's strength, as the latter had yet to reveal his full combat prowess. However, even if Gue Wukong had the strength to kill Bing Ju, it was impossible for him to defeat Han Shuang, who was behind Bing Ju, who possessed the demonic ice silkworm. Big brother Gue Wu, thank you very much. Lan Yiru nodded lightly and thanked him. Nye Tian faintly smiled. Since Gue Wukong had taken responsibility for this matter, it would be inconvenient for him to interfere. Nye Tian 13 sent a message. At this moment, Tang Yu looked at Nye Tian and said anxiously. Tang 13 and Tang Yu had a special way of communicating. Tang 13 had left the power of the ghost eye on Tang Yu's body, which could transmit images and information. Nye Tian turned around and saw a ball of light formed by Tang Yu's eye power floating in his hand. Gao Yuhan and Duan Tianin silhouettes were on it. We'll head over now. Nye Tian nodded slightly and bid farewell to Gue Wuchang. Gue Wuchang and Lan Yiru did not follow him. Instead, they headed towards Lan Yiru's valley killing array. After a while, Niet Tan, Rui Qinyu, and Tang Yu arrived at the entrance of a valley. Tang 13's silhouette appeared shortly after. Tang 13. Nye Tian's eyes flickered when he saw Tang 13. Tang 13 signaled Nye Tian and the rest not to approach. She then flashed over and said, "The elder is currently saving someone. Let's wait outside." Nye Tian nodded. It seemed that Gao Yuhan was really concerned about Duan Tianhin. However, Nye Tian didn't seem to be in a hurry. After taking a few more pills in a row, a faint trace of blood finally appeared on his pale face. However, in the battle just now, Nye Tian had used up too much energy. A few Dan couldn't solve the problem. He would need a rest for a few days to recover. They waited outside the valley for half a day. Finally, Gao Yuhan's voice was heard. "Come in, elder." Nye Tian entered the valley and was surprised to see Gao Yuhan's pale face. There was even a trace of blood at the corner of her eyes. "I'm fine," Gao Yuhan replied coldly. She looked up and down at Nye Tian as if she was thinking about something. "Master!" Just then, Duan Tianhin's silhouette appeared. His face was much rosier. His body had mostly recovered. Seeing Duan Tianhin, Nye Tian couldn't help but be surprised. The latter's recovery speed was too fast. Duan Tianhin's injuries were severe. Even with the nourishment of the Dan, he would need at least 10 days to half a month to recover. He did not expect Gao Yuhan to heal him in half a day. In order to save Duan Tianhin, Gao Yuhan paid a huge price. At this time, Nye Tian couldn't help but suspect that there must be an unusual relationship between Gao Yuhan and Duan Tianhin. "Tianhin, you're awake." Gao Yuhan looked at Duan Tianhin. Her eyes were full of love. "Master, you." Duan Tianhin was stunned. He felt that Gao Yuhan's attitude had changed. It was hard for him to adapt. "Tianhin, I'm the person you've been looking for," Gao Yuhan said solemnly. Her expression changed. You are." Duan Tianhin was stunned. His eyes became complicated. He couldn't finish his sentence. "Yes." Gao Yuhan nodded and said, "I'm Duan Yin, aunt." Duan Tianhin's expression suddenly changed. He cried out and froze on the spot. Nye Tian and the others were stunned. Gao Yuhan and Duan Tianhin were actually aunt and niece. You're really aunt?" After a long time, Duan Tianhin finally reacted. His face was full of shock. He still couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Tianhin, you really look like Big Brother." Gao Yuhan nodded slightly. Her eyes were full of love. "Aunt, it's really you." Duan Tianhin's eyes trembled. He knelt on the ground and tears flowed out of his eyes. When Nyetian and the others saw this, they walked out of the valley to give the aunt and niece time to recognize each other. After a while, Nyetian entered the valley again. Gao Yuhan and Duan Tianhen had calmed down a lot. Nyetian, I know you have many questions. I'll tell you one by one. Gao Yuhan looked at Nyetian and said directly, Lord Elder, are you really aunt and niece to Duan Tianhen? Nyetian asked with a frown. Yes. Gao Yuhan nodded and gave a simple explanation. Gao Yuhan and Duan Tianhen came from a world called the Milky Way region. Gao Yuhan came to the forbidden land of martialism 200,000 years ago to participate in the 9-infant forbidden hunt. She won in the end. However, after Gao Yuhan won, she didn't leave. Instead, she volunteered to stay in the forbidden land of martialism and join the 9-infant heaven. Step by step, she became an elder of the 9-infant heaven. Previously, Gao Yuhan was called Duan Yuyan. Later, she changed her name to Gao Yuhan. She didn't expect to meet Duan Tianhen in the 9-infant forbidden hunt. She recognized Duan Tianhen at first glance, but she didn't say it. Chapter 1740. Nyetian listened to Gao Yuhan and nodded. He then asked, Elder, why are you helping us? Gao Yuhan appeared. Not only did she save Duan Tianhen, she also saved Nyetian and Tang 13 from the guards of the forbidden ground of 9 infants. She also seemed to be very interested in Nyetian and the others. Because I want to enter the forbidden ground of 9 infants. Gao Yuhan's eyes twinkled. You also want to enter the forbidden ground of 9 infants. Nyetian and Tang 13 froze and exclaimed. Yes. Gao Yuhan nodded. The reason why I stayed in the forbidden ground of martial arts was because I could increase my strength faster here. When I participated in the forbidden ground of 9 infants, my 9-color pupils had already reached the 7th pupil. Although, I had a special way to suppress the power of the devourer. As the devourer grew stronger, I felt like my life was in danger. It was at that time that I accidentally discovered that the evil energy of the Jiao Ying could suppress the power of the devourer. It could suppress it completely. Nyetian and Rui Qinyu froze and looked at Gao Yuhan. They never thought that the evil energy of the Jiao Ying could suppress the power of the devourer. Gao Yuhan nodded and continued. After that, I secretly investigated the forbidden ground of 9 infants. I discovered that the evil energy of the Jiao Ying came from the demonic cocoon of 9 infants. And then, Nyetian and Rui Qinyu asked at the same time. Gao Yuhan smiled strangely. As long as I can absorb some of the power of the demonic cocoon of 9 infants, I can completely suppress the power of the devourer. I see. Nyetian frowned and nodded. It seemed that Gao Yuhan really did have her eyes on the forbidden ground of 9 infants. The forbidden ground of 9 infants was a secret place of the heaven of 9 infants. Gao Yuhan's investigation was probably because she was afraid that the people of the heaven of 9 infants would find out. At that moment, Nyetian suddenly asked, Elder, how many of her 9-color pupils have you awakened? He was now sure that Gao Yuhan was the person Senluo 7 Knights met. According to Senro 7 Knights, Gao Yuhan's 9-colored pupil had already opened up to the 7th pupil, but no one knew which one it was now. 8th pupil. Gao Yuhan nodded and said, Actually, with my strength, I could have opened the 9th pupil a long time ago, but my martial body couldn't withstand the ultimate blood-devouring power, so I didn't dare to open the 9th pupil. The ultimate blood devourer was the terrifying blood devour power produced by the 9-colored pupils when all 9 pupils were activated. It was so terrifying that not even peak paramount gods could stand up to it. Gao Yuhan was only a late paramount god, so she didn't dare to open her 9th eye. She had indeed absorbed some of the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet. However, she had not absorbed it from the demonic 9-headed snakelet cocoon. Instead, she had extracted it from the corpses of the mythical beasts in the 9-headed snakelet mountain. It was impossible for the evil energy of Jiao Ying to suppress the power of the blood devourer with this level of evil energy. To completely suppress the power of the blood devourer, he had to absorb it directly from the Jiuing demon cocoon, just like Tang 13's ghost eye. Unfortunately, Gao Yuhan did not manage to enter the 9 neonate forbidden ground and did not even see the 9 neonate demon cocoon. At this time, Gao Yuhan suddenly raised her arm. There were several black blood ribbons on her arm, protruding very clearly. It looked very frightening. This is... Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He sensed for a moment and said in shock, "The power of the blood devour." The blood ribbons on Gao Yuhan's arm were formed by the power of the blood devour. Yes, Gao Yuhan nodded and said, "The method I used to suppress the power of the blood devour was to transfer it to a certain part of my body and then slowly expel it. But this method only treats the symptoms and not the root cause. Instead, it will make the power of the blood devour stronger and stronger. Now that my 9-color pupils have opened up to the 8th pupil, my body can no longer suppress the power of the blood devour. If I can't absorb the evil energy of the 9 neonate, I won't live for more than 3 years." "Annie, this..." Duan Tian'an was stunned when he heard Gao Yuhan's words, and his eyes couldn't help but tremble. Niet Tian and Rui Qinyu and the others were silent. So Gao Yuhan did not have a method to completely suppress the power of the blood devour, the evil energy of the 9 neonate. Only by absorbing the evil energy of the 9 neonate could one completely suppress the power of the blood devour. "Elder, even you can't enter the forbidden ground of the 9 neonate. How can we?" Nie Tian became cold and asked lightly. "Him." Gao Yuhan's eyes trembled, and she looked at Tang 13. "Me?" Tang 13 was stunned, and his face was full of shock. Although his ghost leveled up and his strength increased, it was impossible for him to enter the forbidden ground of the 9 neonate. The guards of the forbidden ground of a 9 neonate can ignore the prohibition spell. "Don't you think it's strange?" Gao Yuhan's eyes were dark as she asked. "Why?" Nie Tian was stunned and asked. He had noticed this a long time ago, but he couldn't figure it out. "It's because they have the evil energy of the 9 neonate in their bodies," Gao Yuhan said in a low voice. "I'm guessing that the prohibition spell of the 9 neonate mountain range was set by the demon cocoon of the 9 neonate." This... Everyone was struck dumb at the same time and couldn't help but take a deep breath. Nobody knew what the demon cocoon of the 9 neonate was. The demon cocoon of the 9 neonate had yet to awaken, yet it was able to set up such a terrifying prohibition spell. What would happen if it awakens? If you don't believe me, you can let him try using the ghost eye. Gao Yuhan looked at Tang 13 and said softly. Tang 13 froze again and couldn't help but look at Nie Tian. "Tang 13, let's try." Nie Tian's eyes froze, and he said in a low voice, "Try to form a shield with your eyes and wrap me up." "Okay." Tang 13 agreed. Her eyes flickered and turned into an eerie black color. Then, an infinite amount of energy poured out of her eyes and formed a black light. It surrounded Nie Tian, but it didn't hurt him. The moment he was enveloped by the shield, Nie Tian's face changed, and he couldn't help but shout in surprise. "Nie Tian, what did you feel?" Seeing Nie Tian's reaction, Tang 13 asked anxiously. Nie Tian froze for a second and only reacted after a few seconds. He said in a low voice, "Inside the shield, my Yuan meridians can't feel any prohibition spells." Everyone was stunned. Their eyes were trembling with astonishment. Tang 13's eye power barrier was able to block out the pressure from the martial path restriction. It seems like I was right. The evil energy of the 9 neonate can allow a warrior to ignore prohibition spells. Gao Yuhan grinned, a rare smile on her face. Nie Tian was ecstatic as well. With Tang 13's shield, his abilities will increase tremendously. The shield was like a layer of protection and didn't affect Nie Tian's performance. "I didn't think the ghost eye would be this powerful." Tang 13 chuckled, very happy. "Elder, why didn't you let Xinye use the 9-color eyes?" After a while, Nie Tian calmed down a little and continued to ask. Gao Yuhan glanced at Nie Tian and then looked at Rui Qinyu. Her face darkened, and she said, "Because the evil energy of the 9 neonate can not only suppress the power of the 9-color eyes, but can also sense the existence of the 9-color eyes and absorb its power. Nia Tian was startled, not understanding what Gao Yuhan meant. Gao Yuhan's eyes flashed, and she said, "The demon cocoon of the 9 neonate has strong senses. It lives by consuming the blood of warriors. To awaken, however, it must absorb the power of the 9-color eyes." Chapter 1741. Hearing what Gao Yuhan said, Nia Tian immediately understood. Tang 13 sensed the awakening of the demon cocoon right after he woke up. Gao Yuhan and Rainy Thousand Leaves must have used too much of the power of the 9-headed snakelet when they were helping Tang 13 assimilate the evil power of the 9-headed snakelet. A portion of the power of the 9-headed snakelet demonic cocoon had absorbed it, causing it to awaken. Gao Yuhan didn't let Rui Qinyu use the power of the 9-colored eyes to prevent the cocoon from absorbing the power of the 9-colored eyes. "Elder, I can feel that the demon cocoon is very active. It seems like it will awaken soon." Tang 13 stepped forward and said to Gao Yuhan. "What?" Gao Yuhan froze. Her pupils dilated and her cold eyes revealed a hint of panic. She clearly didn't know that the demon cocoon was about to awaken. This. After a while, Gao Yuhan took a deep breath. Her expression was still very panicked. The awakening of the demon cocoon was too scary and she couldn't accept it. "Tang 13, what do you feel now?" At this time, Nia Tian looked at Tang 13 and asked. Because Gao Yuhan had used the 9-colored eyes again, Nia Tian was worried that the demon cocoon would awaken even faster. The demon cocoon is more active than before. It is absorbing energy from the forbidden area like crazy and preparing to awaken. Tang 13 nodded heavily. Her expression was serious. He was the only one who could feel the demon cocoon. He knew what kind of terrifying power was contained in the demon cocoon. That power made him feel hopeless. Nia Tian looked at Gao Yuhan and said solemnly, "Lord Elder, we must enter the forbidden land of 9-headed fierce beasts immediately to stop the awakening of the 9-headed fierce beast demon cocoon." Gao Yuhan calmed down. She looked at Nia Tian and said, "Nia Tian, your condition is too bad. You must recover first." "Yes." Tang 13 and the others nodded. Nia Tian didn't look good right now and needed to recover. Nia Tian thought about it and nodded in agreement. He could not enter the forbidden ground of 9-headed infants in his current state. Otherwise, he would become a burden to the others. A day later, Nia Tian stood up and sensed his own aura. It was much better than before. Although he had yet to recover to his peak condition, he had recovered by more than half. "Nia Tian, are you all right?" Rui Qinyu asked in surprise when she saw that Nia Tian had stood up. "It's fine now." Nia Tian smiled faintly. Then he looked at Gao Yuhan and said, "Elder, we can go now." Gao Yuhan's eyes widened. She was obviously very surprised. She didn't expect Nia Tian's recovery ability to be so strong. Yesterday, she clearly felt that Nia Tian's martial body was extremely weak. In just a day, Nia Tian had almost recovered. The strength of his martial body was unimaginable. "All right." Gao Yuhan didn't say much and nodded heavily. "Elder, before we enter the forbidden ground of 9-headed infants, I still need to find someone," Nia Tian said faintly as he walked up. "Who are you looking for?" Gao Yuhan was stunned. "A friend." Nia Tian smiled faintly. He was going to find Gue Wuchan. There were two reasons why he wanted to find Gue Wuchan. First, he was the disciple of Gue Wu Guangsha. Nia Tian was worried that he might be targeted by the Bing family. Second, Nia Tian knew that Gue Wuchan was very strong. If they entered the forbidden ground of 9-headed infants with him, he would be a good helper. "You guys go find someone. Tianhen and I will wait for you outside the forbidden ground." Gao Yuhan didn't ask too much. After nodding slightly, she moved and left with Duan Tianhen. Nia Tian and Tang 13 looked at each other and headed towards the killing array in the valley. After a while, Nia Tian and the others arrived outside the valley. Nia Tian heard the sounds of fighting and frowned. He then moved towards it. At the same time, outside the valley, two figures stood in midair. They were Bingju and Lan Yiru. Behind each of them stood a person. Behind Lan Yiru was Gue Wuchan. Behind Bingju was a woman in white. Her facial features were exquisite, but her eyes were cold and filled with viciousness. This woman was none other than Bingju's aunt, Bing Shuanghan. Jua, kill her. Bing Shuangshan's eyes flickered. She didn't want to waste time on Lan Yiru. As she spoke, her eyes were locked on Gue Wuchan. If the latter made any strange movements, she wouldn't show any mercy. Gue Wuchan's eyes flickered. He was also paying attention to Bing Shuangshan. Although Bing Shuangshan was weaker than Bing Ju, Gue Wuchan could feel that Bing Shuangshan's icy aura was much stronger than Bing Ju's. Therefore, he didn't dare to be careless. All right. Bing Ju's lips curled into a cold smile. The ice demon's silk around him surged and condensed into numerous ice tentacles that pounced towards Lan Yiru. Lan Yiru's beautiful eyes trembled when she saw this. She activated the formation around her body. The formation runes surged in the air and formed a protective formation shield. Bang, bang, bang. Crack, crack, crack. The ice demon tentacles bombarded the protective formation shield. A dull sound came from the air. The protective formation shield couldn't withstand the impact and collapsed instantly. The terrifying ice demon tentacles stretched out and grabbed towards Lan Yiru. Miss Lan, Gue Wuchan couldn't help but cry out. He moved his body and attacked with his sword. However, in the next moment, a strange scene happened. All of a sudden, Gue Wuchan felt the space around him freeze up, while a frightening ice-cold energy came crashing down on him from all directions, intending to crush him to death. Die, you ant! Bing Shuangshan's beautiful eyes were extremely cold. Her lips curled into a cold smile. The icy force in her body was far stronger than Bing Ju's. She could actually freeze the space without making a sound. Damn it! Gue Wuchan roared and resisted with all his might. He used his powerful sword essence to block the terrifying icy force. However, he only had the ability to protect himself. It was impossible for him to save Lan Yiru. Lan Yiru, you think you could take revenge? In your next life? Bing Ju's voice resounded in the air. He seemed to have already seen the scene of Lan Yiru being killed in one blow. He laughed hysterically. Lan Yiru's pretty face froze. She felt the most realistic killing intent. However, at this moment, something strange happened. Boom! In the void, a ray of sword essence suddenly burst out at an extremely fast speed. Like the wind and lightning, it attacked Bing Ju to kill. Bing Ju felt a cold, killing intent and couldn't help but frown. He suddenly turned around and saw a deadly sword shadow coming towards him. And save! He wanted to resist, but it was too late. He shouted at the critical moment, but he couldn't even finish his last sentence. The murderous sword shadow poured down and bloomed in the air. Bing Ju didn't even have the chance to scream before he was swallowed by the sword shadow. Not even his bones were left. Chapter 1742. Nie Tian stood in midair and slashed down with his sword, killing Bing Ju. The moment the sword shadow landed, everyone's eyes widened in shock. The scene was dead silent. No one expected that Nie Tian could kill Bing Ju with one strike. Ju Air. After a long time, Bing Shuanghan finally came to her senses. She howled in agony. How could she not be angry when she saw her nephew killed with one strike? Gue Wuchan and Lan Yiru were still in a daze. Nie Tian. At this moment, Tang 13 arrived and shouted with a faint smile. The reason why Nie Tian's one strike was so terrifying was that he had a layer of eye barrier around his body. It allowed him to ignore the martial arts prohibition formation and unleash the full strength of an early-stage high god. In addition, the attack was too unexpected. Bing Ju was not prepared and was killed in one strike. Gue Wuchan, Miss Lan, are you all right? Nie Tian looked at the two of them and asked in an indifferent tone. The two finally came to their senses and said that they were fine. Luckily, Nie Tian came in time. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Bastard pay for Ju Air's death. Right at this moment, Bing Shuanghan roared. Her delicate face became ferocious. She struck out with her palm, and an endless amount of cold energy gushed out. Several huge ice pillars appeared in the void and rushed towards Nietion. What a terrifying cold energy! Feeling the bone-chilling cold energy, Nieton narrowed his eyes and his face darkened. He was shocked. The cold energy released by Bing Shuanghan was extremely terrifying. It froze the entire space, and even the sky was covered with a layer of white frost. Nietion, watch out! Tang 13 shouted and signaled the others to step back. Nietion's eyes flickered and became determined. He opened the 3 demonic sword veins in his body and swung his sword. A sword shadow whizzed out and turned into several sword shadows in the air, blocking the terrifying ice pillars. Boom! Explosions rang out in the air as the sword will and the cold force wreaked havoc, causing the void to tremble. Ice Frost frowned slightly and could not help but look surprised. She did not expect Nietion's strength to be so strong that he could resist her ice demon's cold power. Nietion's figure retreated 100 meters away. A lot of the ice demon's cold power seeped into his body, almost freezing all the meridians and blood in his body. He let out a low roar, and a mighty dragon aura surged out of the supreme dragon vein, forcing the ice demon's cold energy out. You're Ice Frost, right? Nietion took a step forward and stared at Ice Frost. He was a little surprised. He did not expect Bing Shuanghan to be so young. He was even younger than Bing Ju. However, the Ice Devil's cold energy surrounding Han Shuang was obviously much more terrifying than absolute ice's. It was at least several times more tyrannical. Bastard. Bing Shuanghan was extremely furious. He did not give Nietion a chance to speak at all. His figure moved, and another palm struck towards Nietion. Boom! Crack, crack, crack. Wherever the palm passed, the ice demon's cold energy surged, and large areas of space were frozen. Starfire incinerates the sea. Seeing this, Nietion slashed across the sky with the starlight heavenly slash. A fiery sword shadow whizzed out where the sword tip pointed. It was like a fire dragon rolling over. Boom! The two clashed again, and the space could not help but shake. Nietion's figure shook again, and a trace of blood seeped from the corner of his mouth. The ice demon's cold energy in Bing Shuanghan's body was extremely terrifying. She was almost unaffected by the restrictions of martial arts, so her battle prowess was close to that of a mid or even late overgod. Although Nietion had the protection of the eye barrier, he was only an early high god. The difference in strength between the two was very obvious. In a head-on clash, Nietion was constantly being suppressed. Nietion steadied himself and looked at Bing Shuanghan with burning eyes. He was actually slightly fearful. What he was fearful of was not Bing Shuanghan's strength, but the ice demon silkworm beside her. If Bing Shuanghan was forced into a corner, she would definitely use the ice demon silkworm. It was an ancient beast, and its strength was undeniable. Still not dead yet, Ice Frost's several powerful attacks were blocked by Nietion, which made the anger in his heart even more intense. With a low roar, the Ice Devil's cold power in his body became even more terrifying. Endless cold power surged, as if it was going to freeze the whole world. At the same time, Bing Shuanghan's face also underwent a strange change. She slowly turned into the appearance of an ice silkworm. It was extremely strange. She looked 60% human and 40% silkworm. Seeing this, Nietion could not help but gasp. The coldness in the space pressed down on him. The bone-chilling cold was like maggots in his bones. It was difficult to get rid of. Die! In the next moment, Bing Shuanghan let out a shrill cry. She then slapped down with her palm, and the terrifying ice demon's cold energy bloomed. It turned into a frost claw and pressed down. Nietion frowned, and his eyes trembled again. He could feel that this attack was even more terrifying than before. The bone-chilling cold seemed to be able to seep into his soul, making him tremble. However, at this time, Nietion still did not want to use the 3 forbidden skills because it was too much pressure on his martial body. At this time, He had not recovered to his best condition. If he used the 3 forbidden skills again, it would consume more of his martial body. Boom! Nietion's body shook, and the 9 dragon veins in his body began to operate crazily. Endless dragon energy surged out and formed a thunder sea behind him. In the next moment, in the thunder sea, a giant golden dragon rolled out, and the terrifying dragon power shook the earth. Roar! The dragon's roar echoed through the sky. The giant golden dragon's huge body rolled out and rushed towards the frost claw. Rumble! In the blink of an eye, the 2 terrifying forces collided. The frost claws ruthlessly clawed at the crimson gold giant dragon. Endless cold power surged into the dragon's body, and the crimson gold giant dragon's huge body was rapidly frozen. Break for me! Bing Shuanghan roared and suddenly exerted force. The giant golden dragon's body shook and directly collapsed in the void. The terrible dragon energy raged in the space. At the same time that the crimson golden dragon collapsed, the frost claws could not withstand the huge impact and directly exploded, turning into endless cold energy that dissipated into the void. Nietion's body retreated again, and at the same time, he spat out a mouthful of blood. On the other hand, Bing Shuanghan was unharmed, but her eyes were extremely vicious, flashing with a terrible poisonous light. She could not wait to eat Nietion alive. She did not expect that Nietion's strength was so strange that he could hold on until this point. Nietion stabilized his body and looked at Bing Shuanghan, but he did not speak. Brat, no matter how strong you are today, you must die. Bing Shuanghan's strange eyes stared at Nietion, and a vicious voice rolled out from her throat. The next moment, she abruptly raised her palm. The void trembled slightly, and a strange creature with a huge body appeared. Immediately, the entire space was tightened, and the frost power between heaven and earth became several times stronger. Everything within tens of thousands of meters seemed to have fallen into an ice cellar, covered in frost and snow. Chapter 1743. Up in the air, Nietion looked at the white beast next to Bing Shuang, his eyes trembling. In order to kill him, Bing Shuang had released the Ice Fiend Silkworm. The Ice Fiend Silkworm was an ancient beast that was as famous as the Golden Leo. It was as strong as a peak paramount god. You killed Zhu'er. Today, all of you will pay for his death. Bing Shuang's eyes were bloodthirsty, and his expression became even more bizarre. His killing intent condensed into a cold power that pressed down on Nietion and the others. Nietion, what do we do? Tang 13's eyes trembled as she sensed the terrifying coldness in the air. Nietion didn't say anything, but thought to himself, do I have to use the 3 forbidden arts again? He wasn't sure how much power the 3 forbidden arts could unleash, and he had used them too many times already. His martial body couldn't take it anymore. At that moment, the little fat cat's voice rang out, warning Nietion. Nietion, there's something strange about this ice devil silkworm. It doesn't seem to be a pure ice devil silkworm, but a mutant. What do you mean? Nietion forced himself to calm down. This ice fiend silkworm isn't very strong. At most, it has the strength of an early-stage paramount god. Fat Cat chuckled. Nietion's face lit up, but then froze. The Ice Fiend Silkworm was just a mutant, so it wasn't as strong as he had imagined. It only had the strength of an early-stage paramount god. But the Ice Fiend Silkworm wasn't affected by the restrictions of martial arts. Facing an early-stage paramount god, Nietion had no chance of winning. Go to hell. At that moment, Ice Frost couldn't wait any longer. With an angry roar, the demonic ice silkworm let out a shrill cry. Its huge body moved and pressed down on Nietion. Uft, uft. The Ice Fiend Silkworm released 2 clumps of Ice Fiend Silkworm silk. The black silk was like a long snake, and it pounced forward. Seeing this, Nietion's eyes couldn't help but freeze. Then, the sword chi around him surged, and he slashed out. However, the 2 balls of Ice Fiend silk directly penetrated Nietion's sword images, and they transformed into sharp Ice Fiend blades that assaulted him. Not good, Nietion cried out. He wanted to resist, but it was too late. Bang! Bang! Two muffled sounds rang out almost at the same time. Nietion's figure flew out like a kite with a broken string, drawing a bloody trail in the air. Nietion. When the others saw this scene, they all cried out in surprise, and their eyes trembled. Even someone as powerful as Nietion was unable to withstand a casual attack from the ice demon silkworm. This was too terrifying. Nietion was in midair. The wings on his back suddenly spread open and flapped abruptly, finally stabilizing his body. But right now, his injuries were extremely severe. His entire body was drenched in blood, and his bones and blood had all been frozen. It seemed as if they would shatter at any moment. Godly demon power, release. Nietion roared in his heart. The 32 godly demon powers surged wildly, forcibly dispersing the Ice Fiend's cold power in his body. His body shook slightly, and he spat out a mouthful of filthy blood. Nietion's complexion turned slightly better, and his eyes darkened as he looked at Ice Shuanghan and the Ice Fiend Silkworm. The Ice Fiend Silkworm's strength was too strong, and it was beyond his expectations. Just a casual attack just now had directly injured him. It was really terrifying. The Ice Fiend Silkworm was indeed an ancient, fierce beast. This Ice Fiend Silkworm was just a mutant. He really didn't know how terrifying a purebred Ice Fiend Silkworm's strength was. Not dead, Ice Shuanghan stood tall in the sky, looking down at Nietion. Her eyes were arrogant and cold, and at the same time, there was a trace of surprise. She was very clear about the Ice Fiend Silkworm's combat strength. That attack, just now, even an ordinary paramount god martial artist would be in danger. It was really strange that Nietion could actually withstand it. Brat, your strength is indeed beyond my expectations. But everything ends here. Ice Shuanghan smiled coldly, and then took a step forward. The coldness in the air intensified. Her next move would definitely take Nietion's life. Is that so? Nietion Tianling replied coldly. Then, his body moved, and a terrifying sword aura was released from his body. Countless forbidden runes were released. Nietion didn't want to use the forbidden runes, but under such circumstances, he had no other choice. Nietion, let me help you. Tang 13's body moved, and she came to Nietion's side. Me too. Gue Wuchan's voice was heard almost at the same time. Three figures stood in the air, fighting side by side. You three ants? Ice Shuanghan sneered, and her eyes were filled with extreme disdain. In her opinion, no matter how many people appeared, there would only be one end for them, and that was death. You underestimated the ghost martial art style. That's your biggest mistake. Gue Wuchan smiled faintly, and a long black sword appeared in his hand. It was his spirit sword, the 8 Desolate Ghost Martial. Sword aura surged around Gue Wuchan, and the sword well behind him kept rolling, forming a giant skull in the air. His sword will has become stronger again. Nietion could not help but frown when he felt Gue Wuchan's sword will, and he exclaimed in his heart. At this time, the sword will released by Gue Wuchan was stronger than before. Perhaps he had not shown his true strength before. Ghost martial space, open. In the next moment, Gue Wuchan roared, and then the skull behind him expanded infinitely, covering the space within tens of thousands of meters, including Ice Shuanghan and the Ice Fiend Silkworm. What a powerful sword will barrier! Nietion felt the sword will in the space, and his face changed again. Gue Wuchan's strength was even greater than what he had expected. Before coming to the forbidden land of martialism, Gue Wuchan was a mid-overgod. Now, he was already a late overgod. It was enough to show how powerful his martial talent was. Tang 13, your power of the eye can resist restrictions of martial arts. Merge your power of the eye into my sword will. Gue Wuchan smiled slightly and said to Tang 13, Yes. Tang 13 nodded heavily. Her eyes flickered, and endless power of the eye surged out, slowly merging with the ghost martial space. The ghost martial space merged with the power of the ghost eye. Within this space, restrictions of martial arts were no longer effective. The Ice Fiend Silkworm was not suppressed by restrictions in the first place, so the ghost martial space had no effect on it. On the other hand, Ai Shuanghan was no longer suppressed by restrictions of martial arts in the ghost martial space. However, Ai Shuanghan was not powerful, so it did not affect the overall situation. As long as Nie Tian and the others could kill the Ice Fiend Silkworm, the battle would be won. Nie Tian, do you see the black area between the Ice Fiend Silkworm's forehead? At that moment, Fat Cat's voice rang out, reminding Nie Tian. Yes, Nie Tian nodded heavily. That's called the Ice Demon's Heart. It's the Ice Fiend Silkworm's weakness, and it's also the place where it spins Ice Demon's silk. As long as the Ice Demon's heart is taken out, the Ice Fiend Silkworm is done for. But remember, do not destroy the Ice Demon's heart. Fat Cat said darkly, and a strange light flickered in his eyes. He was not worried for Nie Tian and the others at all. Why? Nie Tian frowned and asked in surprise. The Ice Demon's heart is a good item. I have other uses for it. Fat Cat chuckled and did not explain too much. Chapter 1744. Okay. Nie Tian stared at the black area on the demonic ice silkworm's forehead and nodded heavily. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Woo! At this time, the demonic ice silkworm suddenly let out a strange roar, following which the demonic ice chi in the air increased in intensity, as if it wanted to freeze everyone in the area. Nie Tian felt the terrifying cold seeping into his body. Even though he had activated the astral shield, he was unable to stop the cold from invading his body. Faint ice crystals formed on the surface of his body. The meridians in his body were also affected by the cold, causing them to stiffen. Gue Wuchan's situation was similar to that of Nie Tian. Ice crystals formed all over his body. Tang 13, on the other hand, was not affected by the demonic ice chi with the help of her ghost eye. 3 ants prepared to die. Its frosty eyes flickered and it let out a fierce roar. Immediately after, the demonic ice silkworm's huge body moved. Immediately, an even more frigid cold power surged towards Nie Tian and the others like raging waves. Seeing this, Nie Tian and Gue Wuchan moved at the same time. 2 terrifying sword auras soared into the sky, perfectly fusing together in the air. The 2 of them were swordsmen with a deep understanding of swordsmanship. Apart from this, their teamwork was also very good. Bang! The 2 sword auras combined into one, forming a 1,000-meter-long sword shadow that flew towards the demonic ice silkworm. At this time, Nie Tian could feel that Gue Wuchan's strength had increased a lot in the ghost martial space. Rumble! The sword shadow was like a mountain, valiantly bombarding the demonic ice silkworm. However, it was blocked by the demonic ice chi around the demonic ice silkworm. It was as if the demonic ice silkworm had collided with a huge ice mountain. The sword shadow suddenly turned sluggish, following which the space seemed to have stopped. The demonic ice chi spread out, enveloping the sword shadow and directly freezing it. Bang! In the next moment, the sword shadow shook slightly and directly collapsed. The sword intent turned into a sky full of ice blades that shot out in all directions. Nie Tian and Gue Wuchan retreated at the same time. Nevertheless, they were still a step too late, causing their bodies to be slashed by the sharp ice blades, leaving behind several frightening wounds that flowed with blood. Moreover, the wound was permeated with ice magic power, so it could not be healed immediately. The 2 of them steadied themselves and endured the pain. The power of the demonic ice silkworm had exceeded their expectations, especially the cold power of the demonic ice silkworm, which was extremely terrifying. Even if the 2 of them worked together, they would not be able to break the demonic ice shield that enveloped the demonic ice silkworm. Inside the ghost martial dimension, Nie Tian and Gue Wuchan weren't affected by the restrictions of the martial path. One of them was an early overgod, while the other was a late overgod. Even so, they were still a bit weak against the Ice Devil Silkworm, which was as strong as an early Paramount God. You 2 little ants, you're not bad. You were actually able to block a head-on attack from the icy Devil Silkworm. Seeing that Nie Tian and Gue Wuchan were injured, Bing Shuang could not help but sneer, his eyes surging with killing intent. Nie Tian, are you all right? Gue Wuchan let out a long breath and could not help but look at Nie Tian. He knew that Nie Tian would not be able to maintain this state for long, and he could not help but reveal a worried look in his eyes. "I'm fine," Nie Tian nodded solemnly, but his eyes could not help but tremble. If he could not even break through the ice magic power around the demonic ice silkworm, how could he obtain the ice demon's heart? Boom! At this moment, the huge body of the demonic ice silkworm rolled over again. The terrifying ice devil silkworm's silk was like countless tentacles, pouncing towards Nie Tian and Gue Wuchan. Nie Tian and Gue Wuchan looked at each other, and then they moved and attacked again. An even more terrifying sword slashed out. The sword's shadow was like a dragon, blasting towards the demonic ice silkworm. Boom! The combined sword attack blocked the demonic ice silkworm's attack, but the two figures were forced to retreat again. More wounds appeared on their bodies, and the air was filled with a strong smell of blood. Nie Tian and Gue Wuchan stabilized their bodies, but their expressions became solemn. This is not the way to go. I have to think of a way to get close to the demonic ice silkworm. Nie Tian's eyes trembled slightly, and he said in his heart, "Still not dead." Han Shuang's eyes turned cold, and the killing intent in her eyes intensified. Nie Tian and Gue Wuchan joined hands to resist the demonic ice silkworm's attack. This greatly surprised Han Shuang. She also did not expect that the two of them would be so strong. However, it was useless. It did not affect the situation of the battle, and only allowed the two of them to struggle at death's door for a while. Gue Wuchan, Tang 13, cover me. Nie Tian could feel the forbidden runes in his body slowly weakening, and he knew that he could not hold on for much longer. He could not help but let out a low roar, and then a pair of star soul wings appeared on his back. With a sudden flap, he directly pounced towards the demonic ice silkworm. Nie Tian, Gue Wuchan, and Tang 13 shouted at the same time. They did not expect that Nie Tian would rush over at this time. Nie Tian. Outside the ghost martial space, Rui Qinyu and the rest were stunned, and their hearts jumped to their throats. They did not even dare to breathe loudly. Courting death. Han Shuang saw that Nie Tian was rushing over, and her eyes turned cold. She roared and slapped both her palms together. Two terrifying demonic ice silkworms' cold energy came crashing down, turning into 2,000-meter-long icicles, smashing towards Nie Tian. However, Nie Tian did not dodge, and ignored it, as if he did not see it, and continued to rush forward. He had absolute trust in Tang 13 and Gue Wuchan, and he believed that the two of them would protect him. Ghost martial style, desolate sword slash. Seeing this, Gue Wuchan's body moved, and with a roar, the 8 desolate ghost martial style slashed down, blasting towards one of the icicles. Ghost Eye, Ghost Blade, Demon Slash. At the same time, Tang 13's body moved as well. Her eyes flashed, and a terrifying black blade whistled through the air. Although it was not as powerful as the sword shadow, it was extremely sharp. Boom! Boom! The next moment, 2 explosions rang out, and the 2 icicles in the air were shattered. Very good. Nie Tian felt the pressure on his head disappear, and the corner of his mouth twitched. The wings on his back fluttered, and his speed increased as he rushed towards the demonic ice silkworm. You want to get close to the demonic ice silkworm? What a joke. When Bing Shuang saw this, he sneered and said arrogantly, "The ice demon shield of the ice fiend silkworm is extremely strong. Unless you are a paramount god martial artist, there is no way you can break it." Han Shuang could see that Nie Tian was heading towards the demonic ice silkworm's heart of the demonic ice silkworm. He was obviously going to attack the heart of the demonic ice silkworm. Unfortunately, the demonic ice silkworm's defense was extremely strong. With Nie Tian's strength, it was impossible for him to break through the demonic ice shield. Just now, Nie Tian and Gue Wuchan had joined forces, and yet they could not break through the demonic ice shield. Now, with his strength alone, how could he break through it? Is that so? Nie Tian's eyes flashed, and the corner of his mouth curled up into an evil smile. Then, his body surged with the power of the stars, and the forbidden space of the galaxy was activated. At the same time, a terrifying dragon chi condensed into a sea of lightning behind him. Han Shuang saw this and could not help but tremble. What are you trying to do? Chapter 1745. In midair, Nie Tian's figure stood upright with an ugly expression on his face. Although he had activated the forbidden space of the Milky Way, he still couldn't resist the invasion of the ice demon's cold energy. The space dozens of meters away from his body had already been frozen. The meridians in his body had also become stiff. Even the 9 dragon veins were covered with ice demon cold crystals. The ice demon silkworm's enormous body released a bone-piercing chill. At that moment, it seemed to have sensed something frightening and started to retreat. Nie Tian didn't care about the ice demon's cold energy in his body at all. The 9 dragon veins revolved crazily, releasing waves of dragon energy that enveloped the ice demon silkworm. Although most of the dragon energy was frozen, a small portion of it still seeped into the ice demon barrier around the ice demon silkworm's body. Nie Tian, what is he doing? Tang 13 and Gue Wushan were stunned. They didn't know what Nie Tian was trying to do by risking his life to approach the ice demon silkworm. Nie Tian, that's a good idea. Little Fat Cat's voice suddenly rang out, filled with joy. Nie Tian's lips curled up slightly, but his expression was extremely stiff. A layer of ice crystals formed on his face. He was going to use dragon energy to weaken the ice demon shield of the ice demon silkworm. Previously, when the ice demon's cold energy seeped into Nie Tian's body, he had used dragon energy to force it out. Therefore, he guessed that the dragon energy would definitely weaken the ice demon silkworm's ice demon shield. As the dragon energy flowed into the ice demon shield, Nie Tian clearly felt that the ice demon's cold energy around him had weakened a little. This made him ecstatic. He guessed correctly. The dragon energy could indeed weaken the ice demon shield. However, at that moment, his energy was almost exhausted and he didn't have the strength to launch a final attack. In an instant, Nie Tian felt the 3 forbidden skill runes reseed. His strength abruptly returned to early stage high god level. When he activated the 3 forbidden skills, his martial body was already injured. In addition, he was severely injured by the ice demon silkworm and had lost a lot of blood energy. At that moment, he was like an arrow at the end of its flight. Gue Wuchan, Tang 13, attack. The aura radiating from Nie Tian's body weakened as he felt a frightening chill assaulting him, seemingly wanting to freeze his entire body. Nevertheless, he paid no attention to it as he shouted towards Gue Wuchan. Gue Wukan and Tang 13 looked at each other. Both of them could feel that the demonic ice silkworm's cold energy had weakened considerably and immediately understood what was going on. Gue Wuchan's figure flickered as the 8 desolate ghost warriors streaked across the sky, sending a sword rumbling downwards. A majestic sword image that was as majestic as a mountain appeared. At the same time, Tang 13's ghostly eye opened again. A black claw materialized in the air and slashed forward. You want to hurt my icy devil silkworm? Impossible. At this moment, Ice Frost also reacted. With a low roar, he sent out a palm strike. Ice cones filled the sky, and like a rain of arrows, they flew towards Gue Wuchan and Tang 13. Not good. Gue Wuchan and Tang 13 roared at the same time. Ice Frost's strength was also very strong. It was more than enough to block their attacks. However, at this moment, Nie Tian turned around and looked. The corners of his mouth curled up in an evil manner as he murmured, Gue Wuchan, Tang 13, thank you. As soon as he finished speaking, Nie Tian's mind moved, and a small golden beast that was 3 to 4 meters long appeared beside him. It was Gene 2. In about half a month, Gene 2's body had grown a lot. Little guy, it's all up to you now. Nie Tian's eyes flashed with a hint of passion as he said indifferently. Letting Gue Wuchan and Tang 13 attack was just a feint to draw Ice Frost away. The real killer move was Gene 2. Although the demonic ice barrier had been weakened, it was still very strong. Even if Gue Wuchan and Tang 13 joined forces, they might not be able to break it because they were too far away. Nietian believed that the power of the golden flame within Jin Tu's body was enough to break the demonic ice barrier. Roar! After Jin Tu appeared, it bared its teeth and roared angrily. A ball of golden light gushed out of its body and enveloped Nietian. In an instant, Nietian felt much more comfortable. The cold energy in his body was dispersed in an instant. Jin Tu's body moved, and its four hooves galloped. It turned into a ball of golden flame and rushed towards the demonic ice silkworm. Woo! The demonic ice silkworm seemed to have sensed something and let out a strange cry. Boom! In the next moment, the ball of golden flame rushed towards the demonic ice silkworm. After a muffled sound, it broke the demonic ice barrier. Crack! 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 Immediately after, there were countless crisp sounds in the air. The demonic ice barrier cracked, and the terrible cold energy of the demonic ice barrier was dispersed by the power of the golden flame. The power of the golden flame and the demonic ice barrier, one fire and one ice, had a natural counter to each other. Unfortunately, the demonic ice silkworm was only a mutant, while Jin Tu was a purebred. Therefore, the power of Jin Tu's golden flame was purer than the demonic ice silkworm's demonic ice barrier. Little fella, good job. Nietian saw that Jin Tu had broken the demonic ice barrier and couldn't help but exclaim, On the other side, Han Shuang blocked the combined attack of Gue Wuxian and Tang 13. He turned around and saw that the demonic ice barrier had been broken. He couldn't help but be startled. Roar! At this time, Jin Tu let out a low roar. Then, like a ball of fire, he flew towards the black area between the demonic ice silkworm's eyebrows. Woo! The demonic ice silkworm sensed danger and let out a strange cry. Immediately, an endless amount of demonic ice silkworm silk rushed out. However, before the silk could even touch Jin Tu, it was melted by the surging power of Jin Tu's golden flame. The demonic ice silkworm's huge body trembled. It wanted to escape, but it was too late. Puff! Jin Tu's body was like lightning. He drilled into the demonic ice silkworm's forehead. No! Han Shuang knew that the demonic ice silkworm's weakness was the heart of the demonic ice silkworm. Seeing this, he couldn't help but let out an ear-piercing scream. Nietian was also surprised. He didn't expect Jin Tu to be so terrifying. He didn't fear the demonic ice cold at all. If he had known this earlier, he wouldn't have been so afraid of the demonic ice cold. The others were also dumbfounded. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Boom! At this time, the demonic ice silkworm's huge body suddenly trembled. Then it began to violently roll around and let out miserable cries. It was obvious that it was in great pain. Boom! Boom! Crack! 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 The demonic ice silkworm's body continued to roll around. The terrifying demonic ice cold was released. The surrounding space was directly frozen. Countless ice cones appeared in the air. My demonic ice silkworm. Han Shuang saw this scene, and his eyes trembled with anger. Immediately after, in the blink of an eye, the demonic ice silkworm's huge body suddenly stagnated. It suddenly stopped and froze in midair. Immediately after, a small golden beast drilled out of its huge body. It had a black demonic ice vortex in its mouth. Everyone looked at Jin Tuesday. Their eyes were dull and their expressions were stiff. It was hard to imagine that such a powerful demonic ice silkworm would die in the hands of Jin Tuesday. Roar, roar, roar. Jin Tu's body moved. Like a ball of golden lightning, it came to Nietian's side. It roared proudly, as if it was taking credit from Nietian. Nietian looked at Jin Tuesday. His eyes were fixed on the black, demonic ice vortex in the latter's mouth. He was stunned and said, "This is the heart of the demonic ice demon." At the same time, Fat Cat's excited voice was heard. Chapter 1746. Is this the Ice Devil's heart? Nietian stared blankly at the black vortex of frost power in Jin Tu's mouth. Haha, I got the heart of the ice demon. At the same time, Fat Cat's laughter could be heard. She was ecstatic. The heart of the ice demon was where the life force of the ice demon silkworm was gathered. It contained great power and could be used to rebuild Sakura's body. Thank you, Boss Chinchilla. Sakura knew what Fat Cat was thinking. He smiled and was equally excited. Nietian raised his hand, and the ice demon's heart appeared in his palm. His entire arm was covered in a layer of black ice crystals. Black ice crystals appeared in the air, and it was extremely strange. Good job, little guy. Nietian felt the aura of the heart of the ice demon. He smiled faintly and patted Jin2's head. Roar! Jin2 responded. Her golden eyes flashed with a strange light. Nietian flipped his palm and was about to put away the heart of the ice demon. Give me back the heart of the ice demon. However, right at that moment, a frosty voice rang out, sounding extremely shrill in the air. Immediately after, she moved. Her entire body was covered in ice devil silk, which morphed into countless ice tentacles that pressed down towards Nietian. The ice demon silkworm was already dead. Ice frost would not allow Nietian to take the heart of the ice demon. Nietian's eyebrows furrowed as his expression flickered. He was very weak at this moment and could not block Ice Frost's attack. Nietian, Tang 13, and Gue Wuchan finally reacted and shouted at the same time. They immediately acted, but it was still too late. The ice tentacles stretched out crazily, like thousands of wild snakes, towards Nietian. In the blink of an eye, Nietian felt a bone-chilling coldness assaulting him. The space around him was instantly frozen, and even his meridians were frozen. Roar! At this critical moment, Jin let out a furious roar. Immediately after, terrifying golden flames surged out from his body, turning his entire body into a sea of flames that tore apart the frozen space. Nietian suddenly felt a warm current flowing through his body, and all the meridians in his body instantly recovered. He didn't think too much and stomped on the ground, exhausting the last strand of astral energy in his body to condense a pair of astral soul wings. With a flap of his wings, he retreated several thousand meters away. Little bastard die. Ice Frost should have been able to kill Nietian, but Jin2 had ruined it. She was furious, and with a roar, she slapped out with her palm. A 1,000-meter-long icicle appeared and pressed down on Jin2's day. Upon seeing this from afar, Nietian couldn't help but exclaim, Jin2. Just at this moment, a strange scene occurred. Jin's figure was like a ball of flame, gradually becoming clearer. A pair of golden wings appeared on his back, suddenly unfurling. They were actually around 10 meters long. The wings on Jin's back flapped, and he dodged to the side, dodging the icicle. This! Nietian sucked in a breath of cold air, and a look of astonishment appeared on his face. He was speechless. He still didn't know when Jin2 had grown his wings. This little thing, he really hit it well. Fat Cat chuckled. She was also very surprised. Damn it! Ice Frost's attack missed, and with a roar, he stared at Nietian with murderous intent, as if he wanted to skin Nietian alive. But at this moment, two silhouettes appeared behind Nietian. They were Gue Wuchan and Tang 13. Nietian, are you all right? Tang 13 looked at Nietian and asked anxiously. I'm fine. Nietian squeezed out a smile and said indifferently. At this moment, Nietian's face was frighteningly pale, but his breathing was very stable, and there was no danger to his life. He had just used up too much energy, and as long as he had enough time to recover, he would be fine. Nietian, rest for a while. Leave this crazy woman to us. Gue Wuchan smiled faintly. His eyes locked onto Ice Frost. Okay. Nietian nodded heavily, and then Jin moved. He stepped on Jin's back, and they left the ghost martial space. Killing the ice demon silkworm was already Nietian's limit. The remaining Ice Frost will be dealt with by Tang 13 and Gue Wuchan. Nietian. Seeing Nietian walk over, Rui Qinyu cried out in surprise. She only relaxed after she confirmed that Nietian's life was not in danger. Nietian nodded slightly, and then let Jin and returned to the soul pet ring. He then focused his attention on the ghost martial space. Ice Frost was a peak over god, and her strength was not bad. But if Tang 13 and Gue Wuchan work together, it should be more than enough to deal with her. You all deserve to die. With the demonic ice silkworm killed and the ice demon's heart snatched away, Bing Shuanghan was on the verge of going berserk. With a crazed roar, he launched a frenzied attack towards Gue Wuchan and Tang 13. Countless ice blades howled through the air, covering the sky and covering the earth as they pressed forward. Gue Wuchan waved the Octotera Ghost Martial in his hand, and countless sword shadows appeared, blocking the ice blades in the air. Ghost, 1,000 tribulations kill. At this moment, Tang 13's ghost eyes flickered, and a black light shot out. It was extremely fast, and there was no time to react. Bang! With a muffled sound, Ice Frost's figure shook, and then she was sent flying. A trail of blood appeared in the air. Ice Frost steadied herself in the air, but there was a horrifying wound on her shoulder, and blood kept gushing out. After losing the protection of the Ice Demon Silkworm, her combat strength dropped a lot, and the Ice Demon Silkworm's silk in her body was decreasing. On the other hand, Gue Wuchan and Tang 13 were getting more and more courageous, and a terrifying battle intent surged around them. Leave! Ice Frost's beautiful eyes flashed. She moved and retreated a few hundred meters away. Bing Ju was dead, the Ice Demon's Silkworm was dead, and the Ice Demon's heart was stolen. Ice Frost was furious, but she still maintained her rationality. She knew that she was no match for Gue Wuchan and Tang 13, so she had to leave first. I will take revenge. Ice Frost's eyes were filled with Ice Frost's cold eyes. After saying that, she didn't stay any longer and leaped away. Gue Wuchan and Tang 13 didn't chase after her and let her leave. They had already won this battle, and there was no need to kill her. Swoosh! However, at this moment, the void suddenly shook. Then, an extremely fast silhouette appeared, leaving several afterimages in the air. A deadly sword intent fell and landed on Ice Frost's body. Ice Frost didn't have time to react. Her body shook, and then she exploded into a pool of blood, dripping with blood. Gue Wuchan and the others saw this scene, and their faces changed. Their expressions started to tremble. That sword was really fast. Gue Wuchan thought that even if he was in the ghost martial space, he wouldn't be able to use such a fast sword. Yet Tian saw the afterimage in the air from afar, and his eyes narrowed. For words appeared in his mind. Thousand Cloud Barrier. He couldn't be more familiar with the afterimage in the air. It was the image that was formed when one's speed reached its peak. And yet Tian had only seen one person who could reach such a speed, and that was Luo Xian after activating the Thousand Cloud Barrier. Chapter 1747. It really is Luo Xian. Nye Tian looked at the purple-clothed figure in the distance. The corner of his mouth twitched and his eyes trembled. He had not expected Luo Xian to appear at this moment. He remembered that Luo Xian and Lian Jiufeng were together. Since the former had appeared, the latter was probably here as well. Nye Tian, we meet again. The next moment, a scarlet figure appeared with a strange smile. He stared at Nye Tian playfully. It was Lian Jiufeng. Lian Jiufeng, you really are a lingering ghost, Nye Tian gasped inwardly. He then calmed down and responded with a faint smile. Nye Tian, shouldn't you be thanking me for helping you kill someone you couldn't kill? Lian Jiufeng smiled again. Then, he moved and walked straight towards Nye Tian. Gue Wuchan and Tang 13 tensed up. They gathered their auras and prepared to attack. Don't worry, Nye Tian and I are old friends. I won't hurt him. Lian Jiufeng turned to look at Gue Wuchan and Tang 13. He smiled and added, at least not now. It's fine. Nye Tian waved his hand and gestured for Gue Wuchan and Tang 13 to calm down. Lian Jiufeng had always been a threat. If Nye Tian was at his peak, he might stand a chance against Lian Jiufeng. However, he had used up most of his energy. He was at the end of his rope and could not fight Lian Jiufeng. Moreover, Lian Jiufeng had Luo Xian with him. The latter was also a difficult person to deal with. Luo Xian's strength had reached the early stage of high god. The strangest thing was that she did not seem to be suppressed by the martial arts restrictions. Nie Tian guessed that Lian Jiufeng must have done something to her that allowed her to ignore the martial arts restrictions. Luo Xian's appearance and instant killing of Frost was enough to prove that she had grown much stronger. The people behind Nie Tian were very nervous, especially Rui Qinyu. Her eyes were flickering, and she was ready to use her 9-colored pupils. Nie Tian, tell the people around you to put away their hostility. I'm not your enemy. Lian Jiufeng smiled faintly and stopped about 100 meters away from Nie Tian. Then, he added, at least not right now. I'm fine. Nie Tian smiled faintly and told Rui Qinyu not to worry. Then, he stared at Lian Jiufeng and said seriously, what do you want, Lian Jiufeng? Just say it. Not only was Lian Jiufeng powerful, he was also cunning and insidious. He was a troublesome character to deal with. The Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants. Lian Jiufeng smiled faintly as a strange smile appeared on his lips. Nie Tian's eyes focused when he heard these 4 words. He didn't think that Lian Jiufeng would be interested in the Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants. Continue. Nie Tian didn't have the time to play riddles with Lian Jiufeng and said seriously, I want to enter the Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants. Are you interested? Lian Jiufeng smiled faintly and looked at Nie Tian with a playful gaze. Nie Tian was surprised, but then he smiled and said, you want to work with me? You can say that. Lian Jiufeng smiled faintly and said, I think you are interested in the Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants as well. As he spoke, Lian Jiufeng suddenly looked at Tang 13 and the corner of his mouth twitched. He said, your ghost has merged with the evil energy of the 9 Infants. You must have sensed something. Tang 13 was stunned. She didn't think that Lian Jiufeng would know so much. Nie Tian frowned. It seemed that Lian Jiufeng had noticed the Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants a long time ago and knew as much as he did. Nie Tian and the others were going to enter the Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants to stop the demon cocoon from awakening. At the same time, they would obtain the evil energy of the 9 Infants and help Rui Qinyu completely overcome the power of the Blood Devourer. This trip was very dangerous. If Lian Jiufeng was willing to go with them, it might not be a bad thing. However, Nie Tian didn't know what Lian Jiufeng's goal in entering the Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants was. If Lian Jiufeng wanted to awaken the demon cocoon, then it would be terrible. Lian Jiufeng, why do you want to enter the Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants? Nie Tian thought and asked directly. The evil energy of the 9 Infants is good stuff. Who doesn't want that kind of power? Lian Jiufeng smiled faintly with a playful expression. Nie Tian frowned. He couldn't figure out how much of Lian Jiufeng's words were true and how much was false. However, it was impossible for him to not allow Lian Jiufeng to enter the Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants in this situation. All right, we can enter the Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants together, Nie Tian said with a nod after thinking for a moment. Very good. Lian Jiufeng smiled faintly. Then his body moved, and he suddenly approached Nie Tian. In an instant, a strange energy surged out of his body and enveloped Nie Tian. Nie Tian. Everyone's eyes trembled when they saw this. They cried out in surprise. They didn't expect Lian Jiufeng to suddenly attack. Nie Tian reacted extremely quickly. He didn't panic. Instead, he smiled faintly and reached out his hand to absorb the energy. Thanks. Nie Tian's body trembled slightly. His complexion actually improved a lot, and he instantly recovered most of his condition. He looked up at Lian Jiufeng and said indifferently. The others were stunned once more. They didn't expect Lian Jiufeng to save Nie Tian. They had to admit that Lian Jiufeng's methods were terrifying. He actually managed to recover most of Nie Tian's condition in an instant. Nie Tian had used up a lot of energy and blood energy. Under normal circumstances, he would need several days to recover even with the chaotic origin coffin. It was strange that Lian Jiufeng's power had allowed him to recover most of his strength. There's no need to thank me. We're friends. Lion Jiufeng smiled faintly. He actually looked harmless. That fellow actually succeeded in fusing with the earth vein source. Just then, little fat cat's voice rang out, its expression one of shock as it let out a strange cry. Nie Tian frowned slightly. He couldn't help but sweep his consciousness over Lian Jiufeng's body. As expected, he sensed a powerful aura of the earth vein source. Back at the Nine Dragons' earth vein, Nie Tian, Lian Jiufeng, and Luo Xian had divided the earth vein source among themselves. However, Nie Tian had obtained half of it, while Lian Jiufeng and Luo Xian had each obtained half of it. Nie Tian was still trying to find a way to fuse with the earth vein source, but Lian Jiufeng had already succeeded. Actually, this was nothing strange. Lian Jiufeng had less earth vein source than Nie Tian in the first place, so it was easier for him to fuse with it. Coupled with the support of an organization like the Net Above and Earth, he could obtain anything he wanted. Nie Tian noticed that Lian Jiufeng's strength had already risen to early overgod. He was an entire cultivation realm higher than him. However, if Nie Tian used the 3 forbidden techniques, his strength would reach early overgod as well. I've only just fused with the earth vein source, so I helped Luo Xian fuse with it as well. Lian Jiufeng smiled faintly when he saw Nie Tian's surprise. Nie Tian was slightly stunned. He then looked at Luo Xian. He had never thought that she would successfully fuse with the earth vein source as well. Chapter 1748. Nie Tian couldn't help but smile bitterly when he saw Luo Xian. He had to admit that Luo Xian's luck was pretty good. She actually managed to fuse with the earth vein source. Nie Tian was very surprised. Fat Cat had once said that the earth vein source was the power of origin. Ordinary godheads couldn't fuse with origin power. He didn't know what method Lian Jiufeng and Luo Xian had used to fuse with the earth vein source. If Lian Jiufeng's godhead was extraordinary, Nie Tian would believe it. But it didn't make sense that Luo Xian's godhead was extraordinary as well. Lian Jiufeng is the emperor of the Netherworld's avatar. Who knows how many tricks he has up his sleeve? Maybe he used some evil art to forcefully fuse with the earth vein source. Nie Tian thought to himself. Fat Cat was also shocked. He couldn't understand how Lian Jiufeng and Luo Xian managed to fuse with the earth vein source. Nie Tian, we're done here. Let's go, Lian Jiufeng said to Nie Tian with a smile. He didn't explain anything. Nie Tian looked around. The demonic ice silkworm's corpse had disappeared without him noticing. There was nothing left to linger over here. Nie Tian nodded to everyone and left immediately. Lian Jiufeng, where are the others? Nie Tian noticed that Luo Xian was the only one beside Lian Jiufeng. He couldn't help but ask, "Do you think I would bring useless people with me?" Lian Jiufeng sneered and said coldly. Nie Tian frowned, but he didn't say anything. A while later, they arrived outside the 9 venomous beast forbidden land. Gao Yuan and Duan Tianhen had arrived long ago and were already waiting for Nie Tian and the others. They called out in low voices, "Nie Tian, Lord Elder." Nie Tian's figure flickered and appeared next to Gao Yuan. "It's you." Duan Tianhen could not help but growl when he saw Lian Jiufeng standing behind Nie Tian. His eyes flashed with killing intent. Duan Tianhen, don't be rash. He also wants to enter the forbidden ground of the 9 Neonate. Nie Tian quickly stepped forward and signaled for Duan Tianhen to calm down. Gao Yuan shot Duan Tianhen a glance before looking at Lian Jiufeng. After a moment of thought, she said, "That's fine too. One more person means one more power." Since Nie Tian wanted Lian Jiufeng to enter the forbidden land of 9 infants together, there must be a reason. Gao Yuan reluctantly accepted it. At this moment, there were a total of 10 people who had entered the forbidden ground of 9-headed infants. Nie Tian, Rui Qinyu, Tang 13, Tang Yuyu, Gue Wuchan, Lan Yiru, Lian Jiufeng, Luo Xian, Duan Tianhen, and Gao Yuan. The 10-man team was ready to enter the forbidden land of 9 infants at any time. "Elder, do we enter now?" Nie Tian looked at Gao Yuan and asked in a deep voice. As he spoke, Nie Tian used his consciousness to scan the area. He did not find anything out of the ordinary. The forbidden land of 9 infants was still as dead and quiet as before. Something's not right. Gao Yuhan shook her head slightly. Her expression was strange. Nie Tian was stunned. He did not know what had happened. Gao Yuhan frowned and said, I did not sense the existence of the Forbidden Ground Protector. I had Tianhin test it just now, but the Forbidden Ground Protector did not appear. It's very strange. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. The disappearance of the Forbidden Ground Protector was out of his expectations. According to Gao Yuhan, the Forbidden Ground Protector was always guarding outside the Forbidden Land. It was impossible for them to leave. And let me try again. Duan Tianhin could not help but say, but he was stopped by Gao Yuhan. At this moment, Gao Yuhan could not help but look at Lai Yin Jiufeng. Her gaze flickered slightly, but she did not say anything. All right, I understand. Lai Yin Jiufeng smiled faintly and said, if you can't bear to leave your nephew, then let me be the bait. As he spoke, Lai Yin Jiufeng's figure moved. He took a step forward and walked straight towards the forbidden land of 9 infants. Everyone else was stunned. They did not think that he would just rush over like that. But Nie Tian was not worried at all. He knew Lai Yin Jiufeng's character very well. He was not a reckless fool. He would not do something he was not confident in. Lai Yin Jiufeng's figure was very fast. He arrived at a place only a few thousand meters away from the forbidden land of 9 infants. However, there was only dead silence outside the forbidden land. There was no movement at all. Seeing this, Nie Tian's expression changed. He was very strange. Were the Forbidden Ground Protectors really not here? The forbidden land of 9 infants guards would appear when someone appeared within 10,000 meters of the forbidden land. However, Lai Yin Jiufeng had clearly crossed the warning line, but the forbidden land protectors did not appear. There must be something strange about this. Lai Yin Jiufeng continued to walk forward, but his speed had slowed. When he was about 1,000 meters away from the forbidden land, there was still nothing out of the ordinary. However, his figure suddenly stopped at this moment. He seemed to have discovered something. Gao Yuhan, Nie Tian, and the others watched from afar with puzzled expressions. At this time, they had confirmed that the Forbidden Land Protectors were indeed not here. Otherwise, they would have appeared long ago. When everyone saw that Lai Yin Jiufeng had stopped, they followed suit. When Nie Tian and the others arrived beside Lai Yin Jiufeng, they finally discovered something strange. There were many black, withered trees on the ground. They looked sinister and looked like sharp claws. The strangest thing was that these black, withered tree claws seemed to be growing out of the ground. They gave off a bone-chilling feeling. What is this? Duan Tianhin was stunned and asked in surprise. No one answered him because they did not know either. Nie Tian frowned. He took a step forward and grabbed a piece of blackwood. With a sudden tug, the ground around him was directly lifted up. The blackwood seemed to be endless as it was pulled out of the ground. Bang! Then there was a muffled sound. The blackwood seemed to be broken underground. Nie Tian was slightly stunned. He looked at the blackwood in his hand. It was dozens of meters long. The place where it was broken was also black. Seeing this, the others followed suit and pulled at the blackwood. However, it was broken every time. This blackwood seems to be growing out of the ground. So strange, Nie Tian murmured with a puzzled expression. Tang 13 used the Eye of Ghost, eye to feel. She found a weak existence of the evil energy of the 9 infants in the blackwood. Other than that, she found nothing out of the ordinary. Since the black wood was in the 9 infants mountain range, it was normal for the evil energy of the 9 infants to exist. Why do we care so much? Since the Forbidden Land Protectors are gone, let's enter the Forbidden Land. Duan Tianhin was very impulsive and said arrogantly. Then, he stepped forward and walked towards the Forbidden Land of 9 infants. Tianhin. Seeing this, Gao Yuhan shouted. But Duan Tianhin had already walked past. Everyone stilled and hurried to follow. Walking slowly, everyone was very cautious. Slowly, they stepped into the Forbidden Land of 9 infants. The moment they stepped into the Forbidden Land, everyone felt that the evil energy of the 9 infants in the air became much stronger. This is strange. Where did the Forbidden Land Protectors go? Nie Tian entered the Forbidden Land. However, his eyebrows were tightly furrowed. Entering the Forbidden Land so easily made him feel a little uneasy. Bang! Just at this moment, there was a sound of something breaking through the ground. Then a black, withered wood claw actually drilled out of the ground and grew wildly. What's going on? Everyone was stunned, looking at the black withered wood on the ground. Their faces were full of surprise. Bang! 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 Then, more black withered wood broke through the ground and grew wildly towards the sky. It was like a black, ghostly claw. It was incomparably ferocious. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air and couldn't react for a moment. Chapter 1749. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In the forbidden area, countless black withered trees danced like thousands of snakes, grabbing at the group. Be careful! Nietian was the first to react. He shouted, and then the sword aura around him soared into the sky. Countless sword shadows shot out, sweeping at the black withered trees. The others reacted and immediately took action, attacking the black withered tree in a frenzy. Crackle. Countless withered trees were smashed in the air, but in the next moment they grew out again, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws at the group. Nietian furrowed his brows. He struck out with his sword, and the mighty sword shadows broke through the endless black withered trees. These black withered trees were too strange. Although their attack power wasn't strong, they were very difficult to deal with. Their vitality was very terrifying. As soon as they were smashed, new ones grew out. At this time, Nietian suddenly raised his head and saw that the surrounding area was occupied by black withered trees. The trees that were originally there had been uprooted, as if they had been devoured by the black withered trees. Nietian sensed the aura around him, and immediately sensed that there was some kind of strange rune power hidden in the air. What's going on? The group was stunned as they dealt with the black withered trees that kept surging towards them. These black withered trees were like a colony of ants, black and dense, constantly rushing towards them. Let's charge out. Nietian felt that the black withered trees around him were increasing, and he couldn't help but roar. He took a step forward and stabbed out with his Starlight Heaven Slash, forcibly creating a path. Right now, their situation wasn't optimistic. If they were trapped by the black withered trees, it would be terrible. Nietian walked to the front, but just as he took a step forward, the path in front of him was blocked by the black withered trees. I want to see what the hell these black withered trees are. Duan Tianhen roared, and then punched the ground. He felt that since the black withered trees had drilled out of the ground, their roots must be underground. As long as he destroyed the roots, the black withered trees would naturally disappear. Boom! Duan Tianhen's fist landed, and the ground shook. The ground within tens of meters cracked, and a huge pit that was tens of meters deep appeared. Everyone looked at the deep pit, and sure enough, they saw black withered wood continuously drilling out of the ground. However, the roots of the black withered would seem to be very deep. It was estimated to be at least a few hundred or even 1,000 meters underground. It was impossible to rely on brute force to dig 1,000 meters into the ground. Nietian, there's a high possibility that these black withered trees have something to do with the runes in the space. Try and see if you can destroy those runes. At this moment, the fat cat's voice rang out, reminding Nietian. All right. Nietian nodded solemnly. He had just noticed that there were runes surging in the space. Immediately after, he activated the holographic divine sigil and carefully sensed the rune power in the space. Only now did he discover that these symbols were extremely strange. They continuously emitted a sinister aura that enveloped the black withered tree. It really is strange. These black, withered trees are being controlled by these black symbols. Nietian frowned, and a smile appeared on his face. His palm moved slightly, and a wave of sword surged out and bombarded the black symbols in the air. However, the strange thing was that these black symbols seemed to completely ignore Nietian's attack. They were not affected at all. Strange. Nietian was stunned. His sword was very strong, but it had no effect on the symbols. He tried again, and the result was the same. Nietian, These symbols are formed by the evil energy of Jiaoying. Ordinary attacks have no effect on them. The fat cat frowned slightly, and then looked at Duan Tianhen, who was beside Nye Tian. This guy has the fifth seal in his body. Let him try using the fifth seal. All right. Nye Tian nodded solemnly, and then explained to Duan Tianhen. The latter was shocked, because he had not sensed any runes surging in the space. Nye Tian did not explain. With a thought, the holographic divinity glyph surged, releasing a faint light. Under the effect of the holographic divinity glyph, the black symbols gradually became clearer. Everyone was stunned, and then they realized that there were terrifying symbols hidden in the space around them. What a terrifying aura of Jiaoying! Tang 13's ghost eye flashed, and she could not help but exclaim. The aura of these black symbols was very terrifying. When Tang 13's ghost eye opened, she actually felt it and could not control it. Duan Tianhen, use your ultimate wind and thunder seal to attack these symbols. Nye Tian looked at Duan Tianhen and said solemnly. Duan Tianhen nodded heavily, and then his body shook. A terrifying ultimate wind and thunder seal was released from his body, and like a raging wave, it bombarded the black symbols. Boom, boom, boom. Countless explosions sounded in the air. The black symbols could not withstand the attack of the ultimate wind and thunder seal, and they all crumbled and dissipated in the air. At this moment, the black withered trees that were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws suddenly stopped, as if time had suddenly stopped. These black withered trees are indeed controlled by the black symbols. Seeing this, Nye Tian could not help but smile. Immediately, he controlled the holographic divinity glyph to spread outwards, while Duan Tianhen continued to attack with the ultimate wind and thunder seal. The black symbols in the air rapidly crumbled. The black withered trees in the air also fell to the ground, shrinking back into the ground. As the black symbols crumbled, the black withered trees retreated like the tide. The ultimate wind and thunder seal lived up to its name as the fifth seal. It was very effective against the black symbols. Each of the 10 strongest seals had its own unique characteristics. Just like Jean de Bayo's 3,000 demon seals, it was very destructive against spirit bodies. It was not surprising that the ultimate wind and thunder seal was effective against the symbols of Jiaoying. What is that? At this moment, Lan Yiru seemed to have discovered something and screamed. Her voice was a little shrill. Everyone was stunned and looked over. They saw that in the air 1,000 meters above their heads, there was a terrifying black vortex floating in the air. It was surging wildly, releasing an evil and murderous aura. Everyone looked at the black vortex and gasped at the same time. What a powerful evil energy of Jiaoying! Nye Tian became cold for a moment. He could feel the extremely powerful evil energy of Jiaoying from the black vortex. His eyes could not help but tremble, and he exclaimed at his heart. Gao Yuhan also seemed to sense something. Her eyes flickered, and she was actually a little frightened. The black vortex spun rapidly in the air, and then its shape changed slightly. It became a little slender, but it looked even darker. At this moment, Gue Wuchan's eyes flickered, and his expression froze. He said in shock, "This looks like an eye." Hearing his words, everyone was stunned at the same time. Then, their eyes changed, and their expressions became sluggish. Gue Wuchan was right. That black vortex indeed looked like an evil eye that emitted a strange aura. Being stared at by this evil eye, everyone felt as though their souls were being pierced. Chapter 1750. Boom! Duan Tianhen was extremely aggressive. The stamp of wind and thunder headed straight for the evil eye. Everyone froze. Nobody thought that Duan Tianhen would suddenly make a move. Everyone's nerves were taut as they stared at the black light in the sky. Right at this moment, the evil eye suddenly moved, and it actually let out a miserable howl. The howl was cold, sharp, and extremely ear-piercing as it resounded through the sky. In the next moment, the evil eye shook slightly and disappeared into thin air. Everyone froze. staring at the empty sky. Their faces were full of shock. Nietion's expression was extremely strange. His brows were furrowed and his face was filled with fear. He was very familiar with the miserable howl that the evil eye let out just now, because he had heard it once before. The first time he and Tang 13 tried to enter the forbidden ground of the 9 infants. Tang 13 sensed the forbidden ground of the 9 infants. Then, she accidentally encountered the demonic cocoon of the 9 infants, and the eye of the ghost absorbed some of the evil energy of the 9 infants. At that time, Nietion heard the same scream. Hearing it again, how could he not be shocked? Forcing himself to calm down, Nietion slowly turned around and prepared to ask Tang 13. However, the moment he turned around, something strange happened. Nietion saw Tang 13's eyes change. They turned into 2 bottomless abysses that emitted terrifying powers. Watch out! In the next moment, Nietion seemed to have sensed something. With a low growl, he summoned his sword energy and charged towards Tang 13. At the same time, Tang 13's eyes flashed. Instantly, a terrifying power shot out. A black bone claw appeared and pounced towards Duan Tianen. Boom! In midair, the shadow of the sword clashed with the black bone claw. The shadow of the sword crumbled. Bang! Then, after a muffled sound, Duan Tianen's body was flung backwards. He landed on the ground, leaving a trail of blood that was tens of meters long. The sudden turn of events stunned everyone. They stared at Tang 13 in bewilderment, not knowing what was happening. Bastard, what are you doing? Duan Tianhen suddenly stood up. His entire body was drenched in blood. Although his injuries were severe, he had managed to preserve his life. The scene just now had been very dangerous. If Nietion had acted a second later, Duan Tianhen would have died on the spot. Although Nietion's sword didn't block Tang 13's attack, it greatly weakened the attack and saved Duan Tianen's life. Tang 13's attack was so sudden that no one could react in time. Everyone froze for a second before they realized what was going on. They stared at Tang 13 in fear. 13, Tang Yuyu exclaimed. He took a step forward and ran over. Tang 13 abruptly turned around. Her eyes flashed again, and a terrifying wave of eye energy shot out. It transformed into a sharp blade that headed towards Tang Yuyu. Don't go near him. Upon seeing this, Nietion let out a low roar as a pair of astral soul wings appeared on his back, directly blocking in front of Tang Yuyu. Pooh! The blade of eye energy landed on Nietion's shoulder, directly piercing through it. His silhouette trembled as he fell to the ground. He retreated a few steps before regaining his balance. Luckily, Nietion appeared in time. Otherwise, if this attack landed on Tang Yuyu's back, even if Tang Yuyu didn't die, he would have been severely injured. Tang Yuyu's martial body was far from being as strong as Nietion's. 13. Tang Yuyu froze. His face was blank as he asked, "What's wrong with you?" "Retreat." Nietion waved his hand. A gust of wind swept past, forcing Tang Yuyu to retreat more than 10 meters away. Only then did the others react. They stared at Tang 13, their eyes trembling. They had no idea what was going on. "Nietion, what's wrong with Tang 13? Rui Qinyu took a step forward and asked Nietion. "He's being controlled by the Jiuying demon cocoon." Before Nietion could answer, Gao Yuhan stepped forward and said in a low voice. Just now, she was completely focused on the evil eye and didn't notice Tang 13's abnormality. If it weren't for Nietion's timely intervention, Duan Tianhen would have lost his life. Tang 13's eyes were as deep as the abyss. Blood seeped out of her eyes as she stared deadly at Duan Tianhen. "He wants to kill me?" Duan Tianhen was badly injured. He hid behind Gao Yuhan and was shocked. He didn't have any grudges with Tang 13. Why did the latter hate him so much? "He's not the one who wants to kill you. The Jiuying demon cocoon wants to kill you," Nietion said in a low voice. He originally thought that after Tang 13 absorbed the evil energy of the Jiuying demon eye and mutated, she would be fine. He didn't expect that the evil energy of the Jiuying demon cocoon could control Tang 13 through the evil energy of the Jiuying demon eye. "Die." Just then, Tang 13 growled. Her body moved, and she dashed towards Duan Tianhen. "You are seeking death." Almost at the same time, a low growl came from the sky. Then, a silhouette dashed towards Tang 13, leaving behind multiple shadows in the air. "Don't hurt him." Nie Tian's eyes widened. Seeing that the person who attacked was Luo Zian, he couldn't help but scream. He slashed out with his sword, and the shadow of his sword howled like a dragon. Hum! The two swords clashed in the air. After a muffled sound, Luo Zian's silhouette flew backwards. She stabilized herself in the air. Blood dripped from the corner of her mouth as she stared at Nie Tian. "He's my friend. I won't let anyone hurt him." Nie Tianlin glared at Luo Zian and said in a low voice. Even though Tang 13 was being controlled by the Jiuing demon cocoon, Nie Tian wouldn't let anyone hurt him. Just then, Tang 13's eyes once again emitted a terrifying amount of spiritual energy. A black ray of light shot out of her and headed towards Duan Tianhen. Gao Yuhan's eyes froze. Her eyes flashed, and a terrifying amount of spiritual energy poured out of her. A cyan swirl appeared. Like a spring, it swallowed the black ray of light in the air and enveloped Tang 13. Though Tang 13's ghostly eyes were strong, compared to the 8 pupils of the 9-colored pupils, it was a little weak. Tang 13 was engulfed by the cyan spiritual energy and immediately felt an endless amount of pressure. He couldn't help but scream in agony. Then, he fainted and fell to the ground. Tang 13. Seeing this, Tang Yu rushed over, tears were rolling down his cheeks. Nie Tian landed on the ground. After confirming that Tang 13's aura was still there, he let out a sigh of relief. "He's fine for now." Gao Yuhan's eyes froze, and she spoke softly. She showed mercy and didn't kill Tang 13. "Many thanks, Elder." Nie Tian expressed his gratitude and let out a long sigh of relief. "Andy, is this guy crazy? Why does he want to kill me?" Duan Tianhen walked over and looked at Tang 13 in confusion. "He doesn't want to kill you. He's being controlled by that evil eye." Gao Yuhan frowned and said in a low voice, "It's that evil eye that wants to kill me? Why?" Duan Tianhen froze and asked in confusion, "Because it feels threatened by you." Nie Tian and Gao Yuhan exchanged glances and said at the same time, "The Jiuing demon cocoon wanted to kill Duan Tianhen because it was afraid of him." Chapter 1751. The demon cocoon was afraid of the wind thunder seal. After confirming this, Nie Tian couldn't help but frown. It seemed that Gao Yuhan saving Duan Tianhen had its uses. "You mean to say that the evil eye is afraid of the 5th seal?" Duan Tianhen was not stupid. He immediately understood and was shocked. He did not think that his 5th seal would be so strong. Yes, Gao Yuhan and Nie Tian nodded. Though they did not know why the demon cocoon was afraid of the 5th seal, they were certain of this. "Andy, what do we do now?" Duan Tianhen chuckled. He was much more confident now. "Let's wait for him to wake up." Gao Yuhan was very calm. She looked at the unconscious Tang 13 and said softly. The way the others looked at Tang 13 had changed. Tang 13 was controlled by the demon cocoon and was an unstable factor. Nobody knew what he would be like after he wakes up. Nie Tian looked at Tang 13 with confusion and nervousness. He was not sure if Tang 13 would be able to stay conscious after he wakes up. Everyone focused their attention on Tang 13 and waited for him to wake up. After a while, Tang 13's eyes opened slightly. Everyone was nervous and subconsciously took a few steps back. Tang 13 opened his eyes and slowly stood up. Seeing everyone staring at him, he asked, "What happened to me?" Nie Tian saw that Tang 13's eyes were normal and that his breathing was stable. He sighed in relief. "You bastard, you almost killed me." Duan Tianhen growled angrily. Tang 13 froze. After a long time, he said, "I only remember that after the evil eye appeared, I lost control of my eyes. I don't know what happened after that." "Yes." Nie Tian nodded. He scanned Tang 13 with his consciousness again and asked, "Tang 13, how do you feel now?" "Nothing. Same as usual." Tang 13 frowned. "I just feel that the eye of the ghost has gotten stronger." Gao Yuhan took a step forward and said solemnly, "When you were controlled by the evil I just now, the ghost I absorbed some of the evil energy of Jiaoying. It's normal for it to become stronger." Nie Tian was taken aback. He could not help but look at Gao Yuhan and said, "Elder, what you mean is that as long as the ghost I absorbs the evil energy of Jiaoying, it will continue to grow stronger?" "Yes, in theory." Gao Yuhan nodded and said, "However, the eye of ghost I has its own limit. If you exceed this limit, you will be devoured by the evil energy of Jiaoying." "I see." Nie Tian silently nodded. Remembering something, he turned to Tang 13 and asked, "That evil eye, what did you feel?" "The nine-headed, snake-let demon cocoon." Tang 13's expression changed. She said in a low voice, "That evil eye is the nine-headed snake-let demon cocoon." As expected, Nie Tian's heart sank and his expression changed. He just felt that the evil eye had a very scary aura of Jiaoying. Plus, the fact that the evil eye could control Tang 13 proved that the evil eye was the nine-headed snake-let demon cocoon. Nie Tian, the nine-headed snake-let demon cocoon, is about to awaken. Tang 13's expression changed again. She said in a low voice, "I can feel it. The evil energy of Jiaoying is getting more and more violent." Everyone's faces froze. They could not hide the fear in their eyes. Though no one knew what the nine-headed snake-let demon cocoon was, the energy that the evil eye gave off was very strong and chilling. "Tang 13, can you find where the nine-headed snake-let demon cocoon is hiding?" Nie Tian became cold and asked in a low voice. "Yes." Tang 13 nodded heavily. Using the connection between the eye of the ghost eye and the nine-headed snake-let demon cocoon, he believed he could find where the nine-headed snake-let demon cocoon was hiding. "Okay, we will go now, find the nine-headed snake-let demon cocoon, and destroy it." Nie Tian's eyes became determined and cold. Nie Tian, wait. At this time, Gao Yuhan suddenly came next to Nie Tian and spoke. She was looking at Tang 13. "The eye of the ghost I was once controlled by the nine-headed snake-let demon cocoon. Can his words still be trusted?" Lion Jiufeng also walked over and stared at Tang 13. He said in a low voice, "Even now, I'm not sure if he is normal." Nie Tian's eyes focused, and he finally reacted. He trusted Tang 13, but Gao Yuhan, Lion Jiufeng, and the others were different. They had no reason to believe Tang 13's words. One had to say, though Tang 13 looked normal on the surface, it was possible that he was faking it. Maybe he was still controlled by the nine-headed, snake-let demon cocoon and wanted to lead everyone into a trap. Though this was all hypothetical, it was possible. "Elder, do you also suspect that Tang 13 is not normal?" Nie Tian looked at Gao Yuhan and asked with a frown. Gao Yuhan's 9-color pupil was already at the 8th pupil. She should be able to see if Tang 13 was still controlled by the nine-headed, snake-let demon cocoon. He is normal right now, but the closer we get to the nine-headed, snake-let demon cocoon, the more it affects him. So he can lose control at any time, Gao Yuhan said in a low voice. She seemed to be thinking about something. Nie Tian couldn't help but fall silent. Gao Yuhan was right. The closer they got to the nine-headed, snake-let demon cocoon, the stronger the evil energy of the nine-headed, snake-let demon cocoon. Then, Tang 13 will be affected more and more likely to lose control. "I can control myself." At this time, Tang 13 suddenly took a step forward and said with determination, "Really?" Lion Jiufeng sneered and then pointed at Tang Yuyu. He said, "Tang 13, you almost killed her just now. If it weren't for Nie Tian, this lady would be a corpse already." Tang 13 looked at Tang Yuyu. His eyes froze, and he was speechless. He originally thought that he only attacked Duan Tianen. He didn't think that he would almost kill Tang Yuyu. If he wanted to kill Tang Yuyu, then it meant that he had completely lost control. Tang 13's eyes flashed. She seemed to be in a daze. It was as if she had lost all faith. "Tang 13, I'm fine." Seeing this, Tang Yu immediately walked over and said hurriedly, "The person just now wasn't you. Don't come near me." Tang 13 suddenly waved her hand, and signaled for Tang Yuyu to retreat. He had completely lost confidence in himself. "Mfumph." Lian Jiufeng sneered and said, "How can you control yourself with this kind of faith?" Nie Tian looked at Lian Jiufeng. His eyes flashed, and he suppressed the anger in his heart. Lian Jiufeng was too evil. He clearly saw the relationship between Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu, so he purposely used Tang Yuyu to agitate him. Tang 13 was a person with a firm heart, but Tang Yuyu was his weakness. Lian Jiufeng took advantage of this and used it. "Lian Jiufeng, what do you want?" Nie Tian took a step forward and asked seriously. Chapter 1752. As Lian Jiufeng spoke, his cold gaze moved around Tang 13's body. He clearly harbored evil intentions. "Lian Jiufeng, what do you mean?" Nie Tian frowned and asked in a cold tone. "My meaning is very clear. I do not trust him. I only trust myself." Lian Jiufeng did not back down and said solemnly, "Let me leave a seal in his eyes to help him stay awake." "That's impossible." Nie Tian growled and rejected Lian Jiufeng's offer right after he finished speaking. Lian Jiufeng was vicious, and extremely cunning. On the surface, he wanted to help Tang 13 stay awake, but who knew what the seal would do? It could take Tang 13's life at any time. Nie Tian, do not refuse so quickly. Think carefully before you make a decision. Lian Jiufeng smiled cold. His eyes moved and inadvertently swept across Gao Yuhan and Duan Tianhen. This group of 10 could be divided into 3 sides. Gao Yuhan and Duan Tianhen on one side, Lian Jiufeng and Luo Zian on the other, and Nie Tian and the others on the other side. Although Nie Tian's side had 6 people, the most people, in terms of absolute strength, Gao Yuhan's side was undoubtedly the strongest. Even Lian Jiufeng could not fight against Gao Yuhan. Lian Jiufeng looked at Gao Yuhan. He clearly wanted her support. "I said no, so no." Nie Tian did not back down. He stared at Lian Jiufeng and said cold, "Lian Jiufeng, I will not let you leave a seal on Tang 13. Lian Jiufeng was too dangerous, and his identity was strange. He had an unclear relationship with the mysterious emperor of the Netherworld. Who knew what kind of seal he would leave on Tang 13? As soon as Nie Tian finished speaking, the atmosphere in the hall became tense. Lian Jiufeng frowned, and his eyes suddenly darkened. He said cold, "Nie Tian, do not force me to do something I do not want to do." "What do you want to do?" Nie Tianling responded coldly and forcefully. "Kill him." Lian Jiufeng stared at Tang 13 sharply and said coldly, "If there's something I can't control, I can only kill it. Give it a try." Nie Tian took a step forward, and a surge of sword aura soared into the sky, filled with battle intent. If Lian Jiufeng really wanted to fight, then Nie Tian, would accompany him to the end. "Elder, don't you have anything to say?" Lian Jiufeng was caught off guard for a moment. He didn't think that Nie Tian would have such a big reaction. He suddenly laughed and looked at Gao Yuhan. "Aunt, that guy is a little troublesome. It would be best if Lian Jiufeng could help him stay awake," Duan Tianhen whispered before Gao Yuhan could say anything. Gao Yuhan's eyes flickered. After thinking for a long time, she finally looked at Nie Tian and said solemnly, "Nie Tian, you have to give in." The deep voice wasn't loud, but it carried a domineering aura that couldn't be defied. Nie Tian stilled. He didn't think that Gao Yuhan would support Lian Jiufeng at a time like this. In reality, Gao Yuhan's reaction wasn't strange. After all, Tang 13 was the biggest threat to Duan Tianhen after she lost control. Even if Gao Yuhan kept an eye on Tang 13, Duan Tianhen would still be in danger. The most troublesome thing was that the closer they got to the Jiuying demonic cocoon, the stronger Tang 13's ghost eye became. Gao Yuhan wasn't even sure if the ghost eye could break through its limits if it absorbed enough evil energy of the Jiuying demonic cocoon. There were many things she had to consider, so it would be best if there was someone who could control Tang 13. Even if Tang 13 was in danger because of this, Gao Yuhan didn't care. In her eyes, Duan Tianhen was much more important than Tang 13. Nie Tianling looked coldly at Gao Yuhan and said solemnly, "Elder, what if I don't give in? Then you'll force me to act." Gao Yuan said coldly, her eyes murderous. She didn't want to turn against Nie Tian, but if he insisted, she had no choice but to act. The atmosphere of the scene became tense once more. Everyone felt a suffocating pressure, and a fight could break out at any moment. Nie Tian, everything is up to you. Make your choice. Lion Jiufeng smiled faintly, his expression playful. Nie Tian's expression was very tense, and his brain worked quickly. Lion Jiufeng was too cunning. He was good at reading other people's minds and using all kinds of connections. We'll take a step back. Just as Nie Tian was pondering, a voice rang out. It was Tang 13. Tang 13. Nie Tian stilled and looked at Tang 13. Tang 13 didn't know how dangerous Lion Jiufeng was. It seems there are smart people here. Lion Jiufeng looked at Tang 13 and smiled. He looked very proud. Tang 13 ignored him and looked at Nie Tian. She said, Nie Tian, this is my own choice. It's best for everyone. Nie Tian frowned. He saw helplessness in Tang 13's eyes. Tang 13 was the one who made this choice, but she had no other choice. Nie Tian took a step forward and was about to say something when Lion Jiufeng stopped him. The latter laughed strangely and said, Nie Tian, don't you have a sealing master with you? If you are worried, you can have that little cat keep an eye on me. Nie Tian frowned, and his eyes flickered. Nie Tian, give in. Fat Cat's voice rose. I want to see what is so strange about the heaven-punishing clan seal. Little fatty, are you confident? Nie Tian asked in a low voice, his eyes trembling slightly. He was very confident in Fat Cat's sealing arts, but Tang 13's life was at stake. He had to be careful. I don't have absolute confidence, but I'm more than 50% confident. Little Fat Cat's blue eyes flashed as it said solemnly. Fat Cat was very confident in his sealing arts, but Lion Jiufeng was approaching the avatar of the Emperor of the Underworld. The Emperor of the Underworld was the ruler of the heaven-punishing clan. Fat Cat didn't know what kind of seal the ancient Ming had. Nie Tian's eyes flashed. He was still hesitating. Nie Tian, trust me. At that moment, Tang 13 took a step forward and looked at Nie Tian with determination in her eyes. Okay. Nie Tian felt Tang 13's determination. He stopped hesitating and nodded. Lion Jiufeng saw Nie Tian nod. He smiled faintly and said, a smart person would have made this decision a long time ago. Nie Tian abruptly turned around and stared coldly at Lion Jiufeng. He said coldly, Lion Jiufeng, don't play tricks. I am an honest man. Why would I play tricks? Lion Jiufeng smiled mockingly. His posture was extremely provocative. People would want to beat him up. Lion Jiufeng, if anything happens to Tang 13, I will kill you. Nie Tian's eyes were dark and murderous. Do whatever you want. Lion Jiufeng didn't care. He smiled cold and taunted. Perhaps Lion Jiufeng wasn't the strongest of all the opponents Nie Tian had faced, but he was definitely the most cunning and vicious.